All right. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. We are back on the Sean Atwood channel with Pastor Dave. And listen, if you didn't, you need to make sure you watch part one. It sets the stage for where we got up to. Because first of all, before we get into that, I'm too eager, right? First of all, Pastor Dave, looking sharp this evening, sir. How has your week been? How are you? Fill us in on Pastor Dave's world for the last 7 days.
Pastor Dave's world, it's been a good week. I've been less busy than most weeks because I took time to get away at a houseboat and think and pray and meditate and do all those kind of things that honestly the Western culture doesn't give us much time to do that sort of thing. But
true.
But anyway, it's been a good week. We are just in this process of trying to figure out how we can best help in the fight against child predators and child sex trafficking. And so we've got a lot going on in terms of making an effort to buy a minimum security women's prison and transform it, I should say, into a children's paradise. That's a huge project. It would be anywhere, Ron, but in Northern California, it's a really difficult task. So there's a number of complications, and we're fighting against the city and the county and the state, and we're fighting for the children. And I honestly, Ron, it's hard for me to imagine anybody not being willing to push away from any kind of bureaucracy or whatever you have to push away from in order to save a child that's being abused. That's a hard one to figure.
Yeah, well, you're in LA. Like like LA, the one place where you're going to have the most pushback for anything to do with keeping kids safe. Yeah. It seems to just be integrated into the mindset of the politicians out there, Pastor Dave.
Yeah. So anyway, that's on my mind. There's a lot happening along those lines with a national board that we're trying to get together and plan where to from here. And, it's a move and counter move. And so, that's taking up most of my time this week. But anyway, it was a good week.
It sounds like it's nothing like a productive mindset week as well, especially when you get a little bit of time to recharge. Well, listen, we left off. Okay, you have brought a young homeless lady, a young homeless mother, or a young homeless lady, I can't remember which one it was, into your home, you and your wife. You're lying in bed, okay? And the sweet silence of the night, okay, is broken by the blood-curdling screams at what you learn as the witching hour. And you open the door to see this woman battling something that wasn't there, okay?
Right. And let me say this, Ron. Something that was there but couldn't be seen by us.
Yes, exactly, Pastor Dave. Exactly, 100%. Yes, 100%.
Because it threw her down the stairs and it clawed her, and that was visible. But the actual entity was not visible to us, but was to her. And so, that was my introduction to a lot of things, Ron. And I told you last time we met together that my quest in life is to be intellectually honest. And, there's an old saying, all my beautiful theories have been murdered by a gang of ugly facts. And, I just want to look at the ugly facts. Like, whatever your theory is that real? Is that true? Can it be trusted? So for me, I found a lot of things in Christianity in terms of my own faith, a personal faith in Christ that was real, but didn't really fit into the context of the organized religion that so many people are familiar with. And honestly, and so many people have been hurt by. But anyway, one of the things that was just a part of my wonderment is how come the Bible clearly says that Jesus cast out evil spirits through his authority. And why do so many people talk about it and so few people do it? It is in what I now call the short list of things for authentic Christians to do. And that's to go everywhere with the message of the kingdom of God. And that's a great message. The authority of heaven is available in the earth. And it brings righteousness, peace, joy, the power of the Spirit of the Almighty. It's pretty awesome. That's why it's called the good news. But that's just the place to start. Share that message. And then it says, heal the sick, cast out devils, and raise the dead. And we could talk about some amazing stories of people being raised from the dead. But that's where I'm at on the list, Ron. I have shared the message of the gospel all over the world at this point, the message of the kingdom. By the way, it's never been about the church. It's always called the gospel of the kingdom of God. The church was what Jesus said he would organize in order to extend that message in the world. But anyway, the other things there: heal the sick, cast out demons, raise the dead. Why aren't we seeing that on television? We hear a lot of preachers on television. We see a lot of programs that are talking about all this stuff. But again, and I'm not trying to be mean-spirited to anybody, no. Ron. I'm just saying
it must frustrate you though, because we often we said this last time. People are often so eager to get on board with belief when it's a positive and it's life affirming and it's a good thing, like sitting around and discussing religion in a positive way and how it can change the world is a great thing. But when it comes to the dark realities of evil and the demonic, many people still rest within that comfort of, that's just all mumbo jumbo.
Right.
But it's truly not. It's truly, and regardless of what religion or faith you land in, it's really not. It really isn't.
I'm glad you brought that out, Ron, because if you study world religions, there is no world religion ever, unless you include secular humanism as a world religion, which it may be. But all the traditional world religions, they all understand a cosmic conflict between good and evil. That's the deal. And they define it differently. And there's a lot of variations on the theme, but there's no variation on that. There's just a cosmic conflict.
I go one step further. I go one step further. It's the forces of good and bad versus evil, because there's certainly things in this world that we could declare as bad that have a different opinion on things that are truly evil. And it's going to take everyone. It's going to take the good, the bad, the ugly, in order to truly defeat evil. And when I talk about good and bad and the balance of the world, good and bad has to exist, the yin, the yang. I use the metaphor of the wolf eating the stag. It's good for the wolf, it's bad for the stag, but that is the good and bad and the balance of the world. So for me, it's good and bad versus evil, because we all need to pull our socks up, okay? On these forces. And you mentioned it earlier, Pastor Dave. It doesn't matter what religion you are. I think we can all get together and say the global human transportation networks and the absolute horrendous atrocities that fuel a $190 billion a year industry. Do you know how lucrative a $190 billion industry is? Do you know, just try and fathom, when we talk about millions and billions, okay? If I said to you, how many seconds are in a million, okay? It's something like 30 days, Pastor Dave, worth of time. A billion is 11 years, okay? To put it in perspective of how different between a million and a billion.
Right.
And it's 190 million. That's a flourishing business. Flourishing. And never before have criminals gotten onto the idea that if you're caught with a kilo of powder in the back of your car, there's no talking your way out of that. But if you've got some doped up lady in the back of the car, there's a chance that they're not going to pick up on the fact that you are profiteering, shall we say. And it's something close to my heart, Pastor. That's what started me off as a journalist, Pastor Dave, it was exposing dark web criminals that transported and done all this with children. Shutting down their money, shutting down their sites, all of it. I'm a wealth of knowledge on the subject, and
good on you, mate. I'm proud of you for that. It takes us all. Yeah.
I just wanted to make camping videos, Pastor Dave.
Regarding good and bad, Ron, and if you understand the perspective that I think is a biblical perspective, things that we would categorize as bad, having a bad day, maybe the best thing that ever happened to you before it's over with, right? Because well, we're not always good judges of what was good for us and what was bad for us. There's a point to be made that if you never had any negative influences in your life, you would never develop. You'd never mature as a son or a child of God. But anyway, yeah. So for me, do you want to go back to the stairway?
Yeah, we're going. Listen, Fifi's already. Listen, we're getting called out already. Like, stop digressing. Yeah, we want to go back to the all those traumatic experiences that you've had, Dave, that are probably like you would rather block out. Can you just relive them all graphically for us? That would be awesome.
I can because once you've had an experience like that, you could live to be 500 years old and you'd never forget it. But
hell yeah.
So going back to beautiful theories and ugly facts, we didn't know diddly squat about casting out demons. I knew that it was biblical. I knew that according to Jesus Christ, if we're going to be following him, it should be happening. But I didn't know anybody that did it. But now this 2 o'clock exactly. It wasn't 2:05, baby, and it wasn't a 10 till 2. 2 o'clock. All hell broke loose in our house, and she came rolling down the stairs screaming and batting it. And she was crying, "Leave me alone, Knack. You can't have me, Knack. I'm not yours, Knack." Well, wow, I'm standing there trying to wake up and trying to figure out, is this a really bad dream or is this actually happening? And first thing, when I opened the door, first thing I saw was our youngest son. We raised 3 sons, and they were all in the house during this time. And our youngest son, Joe, he was standing over her, calling out to Jesus, saying, "Jesus, help." And I opened the door and I thought, wow, man, the lights weren't even on, Ron. I just thought it's a 12-year-old boy that woke up in the night, come running down the stairs, start praying for a demonized woman. I just thought, Joe, man, kudos to you, baby.
Right.
But anyway, we didn't know.
Listen, she's lucky. In a different state, that 12-year-old would have just gunned her down. Okay, gunned her down. All right, there'd be no questions asked. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, lucky, man. She's lucky.
Yeah. So anyway, so Cheryl, I think I mentioned to you, Cheryl's grandfather was a healing evangelist named A.A. Allen. And he had he has several recorded albums of him casting demons out of people.
Damn.
So she had that background as a little girl. She watched him do it and she knew more about it. I didn't have that background. All I had was the background of people talk about it and sang about it and wrote books about it, but never did it. And so we just leaped in and we just started praying, Jesus, help her, and started rebuking Knack because that's what she was saying. She was saying this name, Knack, leave me alone. And so we just began to rebuke Knack in Jesus' name, and suddenly it's gone. And she leaned up against the wall and she said, "Oh, thank you." And I thought, talk about an understatement for an event.
Yeah, it's like you just bought her a coffee or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I said, "Thank you." She said, "Yeah, thank you for helping me with Knack." And I said, "Well, you're welcome, but I think we need to talk."
Right?
said,
I think there's some conversations that need
yeah.
to be had. 100%.
She said, well, about what? And I said, well, about what happened. She said, well, didn't you see what happened? And I said, we saw you batting at something that we couldn't see. She said, oh, you don't have vision. And she was talking about spiritual vision, which of course there are seers that see everything in both realms. And boy, do I wish I had that, Ron, because how convenient would that be, right?
Oh,
But
dude, do you know what though? If you did, where would you draw the line? Right? I mean,
yeah,
where would, because you wouldn't be able, because you wouldn't be able to stop. Okay, what are you going to do? Go down to sleep at night knowing that 2 doors down, that one you haven't dealt with there is still it would have driven you mad. It would have driven you mad.
I get it. Yeah,
Because
I get it.
no one can tell you
I
can't
do.
save them all. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying?
I absolutely see what you're saying. And I've thought that through, and I believe in the goodness of God, and if he wanted me to have vision into the spirit realm, he could make that happen. I have friends who have vision in the spirit realm. And by the way, I have one friend here in California, and he's been to mental health 3 times because of weighing in on things.
Yeah.
And just with a good heart. He's a great guy. And by the way, he's a brilliant guy. He's a very smart businessman, but he sees things. And, on occasion, he's thought, well, maybe I ought to tell this guy he's got a red snake around his neck, right?
Wow.
In the spirit realm or something else, because they take all shapes, any conceivable shape. And so anyway, he came down a few years ago, and I said, hey, Ron, God opened, his name's Ron too, but I said, hey, God opened your eyes to the spirit realm, and you have to learn to live with that. But unless you just like frequent visits to mental health, you should probably lay low on just explaining to people the evil spirits that are all around them, because they can't see them. And the average American will think you've flown over the cuckoo's nest.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
isn't that just a perfect design of how the modern world's been shaped to deny the supernatural, even within the text of a religious construct?
Exactly.
It always blows my mind. So anyway, go back. Did she explain to you what Nat looked like? Do you ever get a description of these things?
Yeah. So anyway, as we began to talk that night, her explanation was that she had dabbled in witchcraft. And I said, you know what? I've known a lot of people that dabbled in witchcraft, and they don't get thrown down the stairs by a murder spirit. Because I asked her, I said, just out of curiosity, my friend, how did you learn the name of that spirit? I know you saw it, but you knew its name. And she said, oh yeah, we conjured it in a ritual. And I said, for what? And she said, well, I'm ashamed to say, but it's a murder spirit. And it came to murder me. Well, anyway, so the idea, I dabbled.
Oh yeah, that doesn't seem like a busting my cherry into something kind of situation. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? I'm with you.
So anyway, so she went to bed. She went to sleep that night, and I said, we need to talk more tomorrow. And so anyway, we talked a little the next day, and she said, when you picked me up at the courthouse, I told you that witches were trying to kill me because I was trying to get out of a coven, and they were angry with me. And I said, yeah, but again, the dabbling is, saying the Bloody Mary thing in the mirror, right? Or whatever. I mean,
buying one of those Ouija boards or something like this. Do you see what I'm saying?
But
don't play around with Ouija boards. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not dabbling, but that's the sort of stupid decisions people make. So please don't.
Exactly. Yeah. Let me just say this, since you brought that up, Rod. A lot of people have seen the movie, The Exorcist, and that movie is a true story. It didn't happen to a little girl. It happened to a 12-year-old boy. It's a true story. And that boy got uh, uh, tragically demonized through a Ouija board. I don't know if you knew that backdrop.
No, I
But
didn't. No.
but there are a lot of people that dabble in a lot of things that have sense enough to stay away from a Ouija board, because a Ouija board is basically giving an invitation to any spirits that happen to be approximate to what you're doing. And there are all kind of spirits out there, and some of them are very powerful. And so, that's just like, leaving your house open with the for steel sign on it,
Yeah.
if
The
you
fact
want
that
anything, come on
Mattel,
in.
the fact that it was released as a children's toy by
Oh,
Mattel, right?
God.
This is the mind-blowing thing. I would
It is.
understand if it was some sort of old wives' tale, right? That you heard
Right,
about these things, the Ouija board.
right,
It's
right.
freaking like
Yeah,
you would buy Monopoly, right?
yeah,
Mad, mad,
exactly. And
wild.
that's the tragedy of that story, is that a well-meaning father bought that for his child from a toy store.
Oh,
And of course, the horrendous evil that came from that is in the movie. But anyway, so we began to talk to this woman, and again, she was going by Ramona at the time.
okay.
And so, and we didn't know anything about her. And, but we would talk to her, and then, I'd tell Cheryl, I don't think she's being honest with us. Well, my wife is the most loving, compassionate person I've ever met. And she was saying, well, be gentle with her. She probably, it's hard to confess things, and she's probably needs some time before she tells us what she was doing, conjuring a murder spirit. But anyway, we were helping her. We pastored for years, and we've helped a lot of people, out of life dominating problems. So we were being gentle with her, but little did I know that 2:00 uh, attack would happen every night, Ron. There wasn't
Oh,
a night that it didn't
oh.
happen.
Well, I
And
tell you what, there would be night 1, then there'd be night 2, and there wouldn't be a night 3, Pastor Dave. Okay. Well, there would be an Airbnb with her name on it. Okay. And that would be that. I'm telling you. And I just want to say this now. I think this would have been very different if you didn't have a wife or 3 sons. If you came out that room and you were by yourself and she was fighting a demon, there would have been a Pastor Dave shaped dust cloud heading towards the front door of that house. Okay. It's amazing what you'll do when your wife and your kids are there and you have to act. The minute you're given a choice, just honestly, man, too right. But this is it. That's why the situation was the way it was, because of all these little psychological things that can sway us. Look at how off put you were by that book for so long, because you had the comfort of choice. Okay. And we will always take the road of least resistance. But hey, listen, the Exorcist, I know that The Exorcist has taught me is you go straight to the power of Christ compels you, right? That's what that movie told me, man. Okay, that's your go-to. You ever get stuck, you just hit them with the power of Christ compels you, and that's what The Exorcist did, okay? And the fact that you're, I wonder if there's an underlying conspiracy as to why the Ouija board factor was left out of the movie. And I'm going to just say, I wonder if Mattel paid millions and millions of dollars to slightly tweak that story, because it makes no sense to release it as a toy or a game. Clearly, there is more to this flipping piece of cardboard and piece of plastic than people want to think. And when you actually think about it, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. So I beg your pardon for interrupting you again. It's 2 a.m. It's happening every night now. Okay. And we're on night 2.
So, well, night 2 came and went. Night 3 came and went. I think probably it had happened 3 times in a row when I said, hey, Ramona, what's with 2 a.m.? And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, this happens every night at 2 a.m. It's happened 3 times in a row, exactly at 2:00.
Yeah.
She said, well, that's the witching hour. And I said, what's that? And she rolled her eyes. She said, what's that? She said, how are you going to be able to help me if you don't even know what the witching hour is? And I said, well, we helped you the last 3 nights.
Yep.
So why don't we just talk about what the witching hour is, and you help us understand? And so she said, well, that's the way the covens work. Is everything is built around the efficacy of blood in the spirit realm. And so they do rituals from midnight to 2, and it's some kind of bloodletting, whether it's an animal or, of course, there's a whole. It's essentially a menu in the occult realm of what blood is most important, and it of course, human blood, because we're made in the image and likeness of God, it is the most important. And then the perfect sacrifice is considered to be a male baby, because they're perfect, they're innocent. And so the slaughter of the innocents is what empowers evil, true evil worldwide, is the sacrifice of innocent blood. That's why all these the fallen gods like Molech and different Baal, all those ancient gods were worshipped through blood sacrifice. And so far before America promoted abortion, before there was even the technology to do it, they would sacrifice infant babies to these gods because of the power of innocent blood. So anyway, so she said that's the way they do things. They do rituals for 2 hours, also sex rituals, but then all of that is to accrue benefit from the spirit realm. And so it's basically like you do all your stuff, and then you take that before them and say, we have all done all of this to garnish your favor, and now we would like you to go and whatever. And if it's something that requires more than the rituals that have been done, then they can hold over those rituals, and they begin what's called a working, which is a whole bunch of rituals that is sort of like a layaway plan for something that's truly sensationally evil. But anyway, all that was new to me. I was a cowboy from Idaho, and so I didn't know about any of this kind of weird stuff, right? We just didn't do weird in Idaho. We're just good old boys. But anyway, now every night was like weird at a very high level. So this happened night after night. We were pastoring a church during the time, and I felt like I didn't know enough to really talk intelligently to people about what was going on. So we just told people that we had a new lady staying at our house, and we were praying for her in the night and trying to help her with some of her problems. Because if you do anything with like hardcore alcoholics or meth addicts or any other kind of deep addiction, you're going to have to put in some overtime hours. They don't just go away because you had a happy thought. So the church knew that, we had invested into people's lives. Now we were investing into this lady's life. No one knew who she was. And so I had been scheduled to speak at a church camp for several different churches in Oregon. And I told you I graduated from Portland Bible College, and I had some friends that knew nothing about what I was doing, but they were just old friends from college, right? And so they called and asked me to come speak at one of their camps. And here we had Ramona in our house, and we were doing exorcisms every night, and they were very intense. So I just called and told them I'm going to have to cancel. And my friend Tom said, "Oh, you can't cancel." He said, we've spread this information all over. We've advertised it. You're the only speaker. and you just can't cancel. And so they wouldn't let me out of it. So I went ahead and I went to the conference. But the night before we had to go drive to Oregon, and what I had to do, Ron, is I said, listen, I'd a lot rather you just find another speaker. There are extenuating circumstances. I'm sorry I can't unpack that for you, but it's a very intense season. No. We want you to come. So I said, okay, if I come, I want to have 2 cabins on the furthest outskirts of the camp.
You didn't take her with you.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, because honestly, Ron, who do you leave somebody like that with? Right? I didn't even know other people that were trying to cast out demons. I sure didn't know anybody that I could, farm her out.
No, I get it. I can see where the mind of Pastor Davis went with it. And he's like, well, look, if you want me there, that's okay. But all right, carry on. Okay, carry on.
Said, if you want me there, I'll be, Cheryl and I will be bringing, our family will be bringing a lady that's staying with us, and we'll be bringing Cheryl's sister and brother-in-law, because they were helping us in these deliverance sessions, which were really wild. And so anyway, that was a little strange to them. I said, oh yeah, and by the way, don't count on us having any meals with you or any conversation, because we're going to be very busy with this lady. Yeah. So they were kind of between a rock and a hard place, but didn't want to cancel. So they invited us. But the night before we left to drive to the Medford, Oregon area, we had this exorcism, or it was meant to be an exorcism. It was just a spiritual fight because we were not able to make the demon leave. But anyway, it was a very powerful manifestation, and it was this spirit that she called the Piaza bird. Well, that was a strange one for me. And so, we soon learned that when she was fighting and she would see these things, and you could hear her talking to him and whatnot, and would take notes of what she was saying. And she was talking about the Piaza bird and the Piaza rituals. And so I wrote that down, and I just went on to my laptop and checked out the Piaza bird. Well, it's the power spirit of the Illini Indian nation. That's Illinois is named after the Illini Indians. And it also happens to be the top of the totem pole. Most of us use that phrase, the top of the totem pole, and it means the most important personage, right? Like maybe it's a business, and you say, well, over there, Ron's the top of the totem pole. But for the Native American Indians, what that means is the most powerful evil spirit in their pantheon of spirits. And so a totem pole is just it's a list of the hierarchy of spirits that a North American Indian tribe might worship. Okay. And so I was researching the Piaza bird, and she had told us that she had come from Illinois, and we were doing all that while we prayed. We'd pray for a while, and then we'd discover some things and whatnot. But we fought with that all night, Ron, and the thing was very powerful, and it wouldn't leave. And we still didn't know why it had such powerful control over her, but it was obvious that it was more powerful than the other spirits, because we had eventually forced all of the other ones to leave, but not the Piaza bird. So we fought all night. We slept for probably about 45 minutes or maybe an hour, and now we had to pack up and head for Oregon. So I was getting tired, Ron, and I was getting frustrated. And, I kept telling Cheryl, I'm not buying this. I used to dabble in witchcraft. There's something a lot more sinister going on here. And so, we were trying to sort all this out, and extremely tired. We all packed up in a Chevy van, and we were headed to this camp. And so along the way, this Piaza bird kept, we call it manifesting, but it's when another spirit does what I call a body jacking, like a carjacking. Somebody just pushes their way in and takes over.
Sure.
Spirits, if they have a right to, spirits can do a body jacking, and they take over the human body, and they speak through their mouth, and they look through their eyes, they act through their hands and feet. It's a full-on body jacking. Some people erroneously call it possession, but it's not really possession for one simple reason. Evil spirits don't have a right to own things. They come to kill, steal, and destroy. They harass people, but they don't own anybody. Even somebody like, we say about DJ, who we're calling Ramona now because she hadn't taken that name and we didn't know who she was, but she was going by that alias Ramona. And we used to say she has enough demons to start her own private operation of hell. That she could do her own private enterprise with all the demons she had. But anyway, so we were on our way to this conference, and we would pull over. She would manifest, would rebuke the Piaza bird. And remember, we knew it was a Lenni Indian totem spirit, right? But we would rebuke it. It wouldn't go away, but it would, what we call, go down, which means it's not actually manifesting through her at the moment. But we knew it was still there, and it could manifest at any time. So we had done that several times. Every time we did that, Ron, I got further behind on our schedule, our drive schedule. And so now I'm a keynote speaker at a conference, and I'm not going to be there, right?
Right.
And they already think I've flown over the cuckoo's nest because I'm bringing a whole entourage with me, and I want 2 cabins on the outskirts of the camp, and I don't want to talk to anybody while I'm there. So they
nothing sus at all. Yeah. Nothing sounding dodgy about that in the slightest. Yeah. Don't check inside my van. Okay, when I pull up, don't look in my van. Okay, I'm with you.
So anyway, now all these frequent pullovers, we were getting further and further behind. So we had gone down through California to Southern California. We were headed over, and we had to go through Nevada. And so in Nevada, they very seldom give you speeding tickets in Nevada. That's just, the state is known for that. And so when we entered into Nevada, I just told everybody, hold on to your butts. We are way behind, and I'm going to see how fast this little Chevy van will go. And so everybody was sleeping. Ramona was buckled into the seat right next to me. And I was going over 100 miles an hour. And so we were just screaming along, and I saw a sign, and I got a premonition. That happens to me some, it's just God giving you the heads up, like, hey pal, make sure everybody's awake down there. Right. But anyway, I saw this sign, and it said 10 miles to the Winnemucca Indian Nation. And I just had this thought, and, Ron, I tell people, I know when God's talking to me because I think thoughts that are smarter than I am.
Right.
Like, wow, that was awesome. Wherever that thought.
I call them downloads, right?
Yeah.
And
exactly. So I got a download, and it was just this, just like, watch out when you enter the Winnemucca Indian Reservation. We were fighting with the Indian spirit, and I didn't know that much about them at the time, but I got that heads up. from the Spirit of God. And so, but I was doing 110 miles an hour. I was screaming in that little van trying to make up for lost time.
Right.
And when we crossed the line, Ron, the second we crossed that line into the Winnemucca Indian Nation, Ramona went full on manifest, demonic. But in addition to that, all of the van doors flew open at the same time, and everybody.
So basically, what I'm hearing is you've loaded up a gang member into your van and driven straight into the gang member's turf, thinking it would be a good idea, right? That's basically what I've heard, right? Rather than going in the opposite direction of the gang lord's entire patch, you went straight into it. Okay, so she's went nuclear at this point.
Yeah. And all the doors open on the van, well, including the big sliding door, and everybody's seatbelts came off.
Oh, wow.
And so when you're doing 100 miles an hour, that is a really freaky thing, And so the back doors were open. Our stuff was falling out on the highway. And the spirit that caused all that to happen tried to throw Ramona out the door onto the highway doing 110 miles an hour. So I'm trying to stop the van. I grab her by one arm, and I'm trying to pull her back in. And fortunately, she's a very little lady. But I was trying to pull her back in, and get the van to a stop without anybody getting hurt. And when I got her pulled up halfway on my lap, she reached under my seat with her other hand and came up with my 9mm, which I kept a loaded 9mm under my seat. My dad was a gunsmith, and I a lot of times I'm packing. But anyway, she came out with that gun, and I grabbed her hand, stuck it out the window, got the van stopped, got the gun away from her, and now everybody was awake, and they're trying to hold her down. And I was frustrated, and the adrenaline was pumping because that was a wild experience. But I said, "Who are you?" First I said, "Are you the Piaza bird again?" No. I said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm the power spirit of the Winnemucca Indian Nation." And I said, well, why are you bothering Ramona? And that spirit through her just began to laugh and said, "Ramona, you don't even know who you have in this van, do you?" And I said, "Yeah, her name's Ramona." He said, "No, her name is not Ramona." He says, "You have no idea what you're in for." And I said, "Well, regardless of who she is, what gives you the right to control her like this?" And just like that said, "She's marked with the blood of a virgin sacrifice." Well, I didn't understand marks. I didn't know that spirits can see marks on people's foreheads, and they're spiritual, like they're spiritual tattoos is basically what they are. But they mark you based on things that you've been involved in that give spirits a right against you. The Bible word for that is topos, T-O-P-O-S, but it means a right to act. And marks give them a right to act. So the spirit said she's marked with the blood of a virgin sacrifice. And I said, well, and so you just decided to kill her? And he said, "Yeah, that's my right. I have a right to kill her." And I said, "Well, so obviously you tried and it didn't work." Now, anytime you're dealing with an evil spirit, they have huge egos, and they do not like to be put down by a mortal. And so I said, "Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you are the power spirit of this Indian nation, then every other evil spirit around just saw you do an epic fail." I said, "Well, we didn't even know what you were planning. You planned to kill her. We came onto your property. You sprung your plan, and obviously she's still alive. We're all alive. We have to pick up our suitcases along the side of the road, but I said, for being a power spirit in an Indian nation, I'd say that's an epic fail. And of course, I got very angry at that. And I began to say, which almost always they're very threatening. We'll kill her. We'll kill you. We'll kill your wife and kids. And I said, well, it looks like to me that you laid an ambush for us and did your best and miserably failed. We're all fine. And so I would think that that would be embarrassing to you. I said, here's the deal. Whoever this woman is, she's under our custody. That should be plain to you by virtue of the fact that she's still alive. But because she's under our custody, if we have to camp right here by the side of the road for a week and fight with you, we will fight with you until you are defeated in her life. And I said, at that point, the entire Indian nation is going to see you as a failure instead of as a power spirit. And it was very interesting to me. And by the way, at this point, I've done exorcisms all over the world. I've never really done something like this with an evil spirit. And I'm not even suggesting it. I'm just telling you what happened. Because I was a rookie. I was a beginner. I didn't know what to do. And I just said, I said, why don't you just leave her alone? We'll go our way. And you won't have the embarrassment of being defeated by our prayers. And and the spirit was still speaking through her, but he said, and subdued tones, it said, well, do you promise you'll never bring her back? And I said, I think I can promise you that. I said, I got no reason to bring her onto this reservation. But he said, well, if I go and you bring her back, I'll kill her. I said, I get it. I get that that's your hope. And I said, I'll tell you what, if you let us go, I'll take her back another way and we won't come through this reservation, which he suddenly was gone. And then she came back to her senses. Yeah, it's almost like somebody waking up from a coma when those kind of things happen. But she came back to her senses. And of course, the van was a mess. Everything, my brother-in-law was out picking stuff up along the highway, and she came back to her senses. And she said, "What happened?" And I said, "Well, we're going to have to talk about that, but I'm not going to talk about it till we get off this Indian reservation." And she said, "Are you angry?" I said, "Yep." She said, "Why are you angry?" I said, "Ramona, we will talk about it after we get off this Indian reservation, not until then." And so she was a little scared. We picked up everything. She was crying. My wife was trying to comfort her. But I'd had it up to here, Ron, with deception, because a cardinal principle in the spirit realm is truth sets you free. Deception brings you into bondage, but you can never find true freedom as long as you're involved in deception. Yep. So anyway, and the spirit had told me, you don't even know who she is. Well, so we drove as fast as I could off that Indian reservation, then pulled over to the side of the road, and I said, "Ramona, you need to get your bag." She had a bag. I said, "Get your bag and get out." And she said, "Are you going to leave me by the side of the road?" And I said, "Well, I haven't decided yet, but I will tell you this. I don't want to hear you say you dabbled in witchcraft. That's BS. I said, I don't want to hear you use the name Ramona, because I was just told that's not your real name. And so we're going to get out by the side of the road, and you're going to either decide to be honest, however painful that is to you, or we're going to leave you by the side of the road." And figured we tried to help you, but since the truth sets people free, and you wouldn't speak the truth, we couldn't help you. And I said, "I'm prepared to do that. So it's all up to you." So she's crying. She's by the side of the road, and this was in Winnemucca, Nevada, just on the other side of the reservation. And she said, what do you want to know? And I said, well, for starters, what's your real name? She said, my birth name is Sr'A LaVey. And of course, in California, everybody knew about Anton LaVey.
Right.
He founded.
Right. Okay, I got it. Sorry.
Yeah. Anton founded the Church of Satan and wrote the Satanic Bible and wrote a book called The Satanic Witch. And, so LaVey is a unique name in California.
Yeah.
And so when she said, my name's Sr'A LaVey, I said, LaVey? I said, you're not related to the satanic high priest that carries the snake around, are you? She said, yeah, that's my birth father. And
at the front door.
Yeah. I just thought, wow. All right, that's a little different than dabbling. And so she said, what else do you want to know? I said, well,
dabble.
Yeah, I want to know everything. How come these Indian spirits have a right to you? She said, well, my mother was a Lenni Indian witch, and Anton and her did a sex ritual for a power convergence to bring together the power of a Lenni black magic with Luciferian Crowleyism. And so they were trying to bring their spirits, power spirits together. And she said, I was conceived in that ritual, and I've been through a whole lifetime of satanic ritual abuse. Damn. She said a lot of terrible things. I said, okay, so the spirit said you were marked by the blood of a virgin sacrifice. We need to deal with that. What was he talking about? She was just weeping at this point. And she said, it was my little sister. I didn't want to do it. I love my little sister. Anton made me do it. He put his hands over my hands over a knife and made me cut her heart out. And she was just sobbing. And she told us the little girl's name, and that she was just a child when she was forced to do that ritual. And
did you happen to mention how old she was?
What's that?
Did you mention how old she was when that ritual took place?
Yeah, she was almost to turn 6 when that ritual happened. And
do you mind if I put some pictures of Anton on the screen while you're talking about this?
No, I don't mind.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Just to sort of, for those of you who don't, or maybe have never seen this guy, like, yeah. I mean, he played the part, and
yeah, he was also involved in the filming of Rosemary's Baby. I don't know if you knew that or not, but he played the satanic part in Rosemary's Baby. But I'll tell you something about that snake you're looking at. I said to Ramona, I said, the man that carried around the snake, she said, well, that's not a real snake. And I said, well, what do you mean it's not a real snake? It moves. And she said, oh, yeah, I'm just saying it's not just a snake. She said it's his power spirit, Leviathan, that transmogrifies into a snake. But it can change into all kinds of shapes. And I've seen it do a great many hideous things. So anyway, so now she's unpacking all this, and it's making a little more sense to me, Ron. Like, wow, okay, that's a whole different league of.
Yeah, I mean, there's being, as far as like first day on the job goes, right? You must have had a serious conversation with your God at the end of it, like being like, right, listen, there's the deep end, right? And then your God's like, well, you shouldn't have waited 8 years to read that book. Okay, yeah. We could have broken you in really easily over those 8 years, Dave. Right. Okay, but you left it to this point. So, I mean, there's the deep end, and then there's the deep end.
Oh boy. So anyway, so she said she'd been involved in a satanic ritual abuse, and she said, I've been through a lot of rituals. She said, you wouldn't understand them. Well, I'd already gotten that book. And so I thought, wow, at this level, I wonder if it's the rituals of defilement. And so I said to her, I said, have you been involved in any of the Aleister Crowley's rituals of defilement? And she was shocked that I knew about them. And she said, yeah, how do you know about the rituals of defilement? And I said, well, a prophet gave me this book and told me that I'd be face to face with the devil. I needed to read this book. I still haven't read it all, but it talks about the rituals of defilement. And I said, how many of them have you been through? Because they're consecutive rituals that happen on Halloween during the witching hour for 7 consecutive years. And so she had been through 6 of the 7. She'd been through what they call the Bride of the Beast ceremony. And the last ritual is called the Bride of Satan ceremony. Probably most people listening have heard of the Bride of Satan and all that went into the netherworld in terms of trying to come up with a woman so defiled that she could bear Satan's seed and bring forth the moon child or the Antichrist. But anyway, without getting off into that, she was surprised that I had heard about that. And then she said, anything else you want to know? I said, yeah, Ramona. I said, I want to know everything that you've lied to us about. And she said, well, I lied because I thought if you knew who I was, you'd kick me out of your house. She said, would you have? And I said, well, that's a fair question. I don't know if I would have or not. It's pretty intense, but I said, here's the deal. I believe there's a God. I believe God brought us together. I believe that God's will is for us to somehow help you, but I have to know you're not going to keep lying to us, because you almost got my wife and I and our 3 sons killed just now back in Nevada. I said, I'm not going to sacrifice my family because you're dishonest. So I want you to be honest. So that's when she said, remember I told you when she came into the church, she had a big brace on her face and,
Yep.
and, so she had told us she got in a car wreck and went off the road and almost killed herself. And that seemed legitimate, right? Her face was all broken up. So now she says, well, I lied to you about the car wreck. I didn't get in a car wreck. I said, well, what did happen to you? And she said, well, my daughter tried to beat me to death with a baseball bat and threw my body in the river, and because she thought I was dead, and I somehow survived. Well, I don't know about you, Ron, but I haven't talked to a whole lot of people who have that story that a daughter tried to beat the mother to death with a baseball bat. That's a bizarre story.
Yeah, but did you not tell us something about a mother getting beaten at the start of this story?
Exactly, which is where I'm going.
Okay.
So remember the little vampire that was in the plexiglass cage?
Right. The plexiglass vampire. That's right. That's right. That's right. It was the plexiglass vampire. Sorry, I'm gripped. Okay. I'm fully invested in this.
She said, my daughter was in our coven. She tried to beat me to death with a baseball bat, threw my body in the river. Same exact story that the vampire told me. Right. And so I said, wow, is your daughter a vampire? And she said, yeah. How would you know that? And I said, well, only God can pull off stuff like this. But I got locked in the same plexiglass cage with your daughter in juvenile hall. And she said, yeah, that's why she's in juvenile hall. She tried to kill me. And so anyway,
I'm detecting some dysfunction in this family, Pastor Dave. Just subtle undertones of dysfunction. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, so then she said, will you let me stay with your family? I said, yeah. She said, will you adopt me? I said, well, I'm not sure how that works. I think aren't you just 2 days younger than my wife? She said, yeah, but you can do an adult adoption. I've already checked on it. It's legal, and you can adopt me and I can be your daughter at any age. And I didn't know that. And I said, oh, well, I said, we would probably consider doing that. And she said, can I change my name to Deborah Joy Bryant? And I was shocked, Ron, because I'd never heard any of this, but she had already planned out her new name and had inquired into the legalities of an adoption. And so I said, wow, you've been thinking about this for a while, haven't you? She said, yeah. She said, I've been thinking about it ever since I met you. And she said, I had a terrible father, and I'd love to be Deborah Joy Bryant. I said, why that? She said, well, Deborah is the name of the warrior queen of the ancient Israelites. And joy is a promise that God says that he'll turn our mourning into joy. And she said, Brian is your name, but I also know that it means an overcomer or a conqueror. And so she said, I think it's a perfect name for me. So that's what we did. And there by the side of the road, she said, now that Anton knows that you know, the Church of Satan will come after you. And then that's when she told us that they weren't in San Francisco anymore. That had become kind of like a museum, if we could put it that way, for people to come and look at the old Victorian, the old house, and welcome to the Hotel California, kind of memorialized the old house that was the first Church of Satan. So she said they kind of turned that into a satanic museum, and they moved up into the foothills of Northern California. And she said the ranch, my father and sisters are on a ranch that is in Grass Valley. Grass Valley's about a 40-minute drive from Yuba City. And so
I just want to say as well, nothing bad ever happened when any form of satanic cult packs up and moves to the woods. Okay, there's not foreshadowing here. Okay, we're not in the final stages of raising up the Antichrist at all here. Okay, I'm telling you, man. I can't wait till this is a Netflix show. Okay, because everyone's going to lose their goddamn mind when you reveal who this woman is. I'm just telling you.
Well, so anyway, we prayed for her. She was crying. It was a very, it's one thing to just recount it to you, but it was a very, very emotional time by the side of the road. She was just sobbing and recalling, what happened to her little sister, whose name was Delina Starr, and she was just in the throes of just deep grief, and so we just hugged her. And I found that love is, I believe love is the most powerful force in the universe. That's my conviction. I'll agree with you. Have learned to use love well because we have a motto here: meet people where they are and just love the hell out of them. Whatever's wrong with them, drug addicts, prostitutes, Satanists, vampires, whatever, meet them where they are and love the hell out of them. And so we just really encouraged her. We began at that point to call her. She never wanted to be called Ray Ray again. Ramona was just an assumed name. And so that's when we named her Deborah Joy Bryan. Her nickname's DJ. And we then, when we got back home, we made that legal. And so now she's married and she's living in another state. And she married one of the guys that came through our rehab program. His name's Billy. And so they're doing good. And they, every time something like this happens, she says, Billy and I'll pray for you, Dad. Tell the story. Tell him what happened to me. Tell him how God saved me. But anyway, she did tell us at the time that the Church of Satan would up the ante. Again, I was really naive at the time, Ron. I said, well, let's not tell him. She said, oh, Dad, you are so naive. She said, as immediately when this happens, Anton knows what happened. She said, do you realize spirits travel at the speed of thought? They don't have corporal bodies. They just they travel instantly to anywhere in the world. And they've already told him exactly what's happened here. There's no hiding that from him. And he'll come after you, and I don't know what he'll do, but he'll want me back. He's invested his entire life. I mean, think about that for a minute, Ron.
Wait. I know you're so desensitized to this story that you're just, because I've literally heard about 4 words since you hit me with Perspec vampire baby daughter. Okay, since then it's been a bit like right. So just before we get on to the revenge tactics of freaking Anton LaVey, just to clarify, Dave, right? Because I didn't know any of this. Okay, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
So prophet turns up with a book, hands you the book. 8 years go by, you start dabbling in the book. Meet some lady who is outside of a store who looks homeless with a big brace on her face. You bring her into your house. Witching hour, everything goes crazy. You're speaking at a function, you're driving, doors open, and then you realize that you basically have the daughter of the emissary of Satan, right? The guy who's handpicked to be the emissary of Satan's daughter, right? First of all, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to say that first moment alone in a bathroom, right? Where you were just alone looking in the mirror, just going,
what's
going on, right? Amazing. How?
Right. Absolutely,
Ron. See, when we talk about predefined lives and predefined paths and all of this, tell me that this makes any sense other than with predefined higher powers and all of that. No. Because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense without that. Like if a bookies was doing the odds on this, it'd be ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah.
The odds are ridiculous. Let me throw this in. So we went back, we changed her name to Deborah Joy Bryan. We got her up in front of the church and announced that we had officially adopted her and that her name was Deborah Joy Bryan. When we did, Ron, a couple from our church had been part of our church for years. They came rushing up and they said to DJ, they said, you were the person that got the prophecy at the Memorial Coliseum. And I thought, no, she didn't get no prophecy at the Memorial Coliseum. She came out of the Satanic Ranch in Grass Valley. And I said, no, I think you got the wrong lady. And they said, no, we were sitting right behind you. You got a prophecy that you had a terrible father, but that God loved you and that God had planned another father for you, that he was a pastor. This is from Sacramento, bro, which is, 60 miles from us. That there was another pastor and didn't say my name or the name of the church or anything, but said there's a pastor there that will take you into his home and they will treat you as their own daughter and your story will go around the world. And how's that for, can't make this stuff up. And so now when Tim and Roanna came up and said, we were sitting right behind you, you tried to hide. We remember everything that was said. You tried to hide. And the prophet guy said, you can hide from me, sweetheart, but you can't hide from God. He sees you. He knows the horrors you've been through. And he has a good father for you in Yuba City, California. And Tim and Roanna said, when he said a pastor in Yuba City, course, they went to the Church of Glad Tidings. They knew Cheryl and I always took people in, and they turned to one another and said, "That's got to be Pastor Dave." Who else would be likely to just take in a street person and adopt him, right? So anyway, now all that came full circle, and it helped me, Ron, because the old prophet from Borneo that brought me the book, he came to set the captives free, and he kept pressuring me. You're going to be face to face with the devil. You're not ready for it. I didn't want that pressure, and I really didn't appreciate it.
Who does, mate? Like, like if that was a position you had to apply for, could you imagine the religious nutters? Like it would be like a 6-foot brick, like a steroid monster. Like, I'm ready to defeat the evil. You know what I'm saying? Like there would be some psychological testing going on.
Boy. Yeah, there was a ton of it for me. My wife's gung ho. She right from the beginning, because her grandfather had such success casting out demons. So, God's called us to cast out demons. I was just like, hey, we're helping orphans, widows, teen runaways, drug addicts. Surely that's enough. I mean, we're busting our hump just to try to help broken people. Yeah, I figured that ought to be enough, right?
You could inspire the normal man to do that, but that's not your mission. You see what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
sorry, mate. Sorry to break it to
you. So there by the side of the road, she was telling us about the coven that was in Grass Valley and different people that were involved in it. And she said they're very evil people, and they will try to destroy your church. They'll try to get me back for the Bride of Satan ceremony, and they'll kill to do it. So you just need to know what you're signing up for here. And I said, well, how bad can it be? I mean, think about what's just happened to us, right? So I said, I believe that somehow there's a sovereign plan here. And so we're just going to embrace it, and we're going to help you. But I want you to promise me that you won't lie to us anymore. That will short circuit the whole operation. And honestly, Ron, to her credit, DJ, she told us about everything we asked about the satanic rituals. And by the way, I don't care to know about anything that I don't need to know in order to get something done. Right.
Right.
So knowing for knowing's sake, going through all that gnarly stuff, I have no interest in that. But anytime we would need to talk to her about, something that would come up, and a lot of things came up in what we call deliverance. And they, as we would talk to her about the different issues, however embarrassing they were, she would always be honest with us after that. And again, I love her. She calls me, maybe not every week, but regularly. And I have the highest admiration for her because, being a pastor, try to help people get over, all kinds of life-dominating addictions. And sometimes people can get to, feeling woe is me, feeling sorry for themselves. And I always think of little DJ, and she fought Anton, she fought the coven, she fought Satanists worldwide in the spirit realm. She fought a whole bunch of high-level spirits. And every time that there would be a fight like that, it would leave her exhausted, sometimes with marks in her flesh, claw marks, bite marks, all kinds of things happen that really defy the mindset of a rational, certainly in America, and probably it's the same in Europe, but there's been, ever since what I call the Great Endarkening. Were you aware of the Great Endarkening?
Oh, educate us, Pastor Dave. Educate us.
They wrongly called it the Great Enlightenment, but it was the Great Endarkening. And they decided there was no such thing as a supernatural realm.
Right.
Despite the fact that all human beings from all ages in all cultures knew there was a spirit realm,
Yes.
these wise guys decided there wasn't. And what a darkening of conscience.
Well, I mean, not even decided that there wasn't. They would just burn you alive if you argued.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there was quite a good system in place to publicly sway people away from thinking this way. You know, that's crazy.
There's that.
Crazy.
So anyway, we came home to a whole different fight. We were still fighting demons, but now we were actually fighting the human associates of those demons. And so we had blood sacrifices both at our home and at our church property. Anton LaVey, they sacrificed a llama on our church property at one point. That's a pretty big bodied animal, you know, lots of blood. They did numerous.
That is random. That is random. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, there are llamas around here, and they're a little easier to transport than like a bull or something. But anyway, so it was full on show up in the showdown and throw down, and so we were fasting. Fasting, by the way, is a profound tool in the spirit realm, in the realm of doing spiritual warfare. That's why there's a verse in the Bible where there was a certain kind of spirit that came on this young boy and tossed him into a fire and tossed him into water to drown himself. It was trying to kill the boy. And the disciples were trying to cast it out and were having trouble because it's a real fight. It's not a head game. It's a real fight. And it has to do with spiritual authority, and it has to do with truth and the conviction of truth. But anyway, in that story in the Bible, Jesus cast the spirit out, but he said to the disciples, he said, for you, this kind would only come out through fasting and prayer. And of course, I've been through the Bible very thoroughly since all this began, looking for lessons on spiritual warfare and deliverance, because I've now done it all over the world. But there are a lot of lessons in the Bible. And that's one lesson, is there are different kinds of spirits. Some are far more powerful than others. And whether we understand why or not, fasting changes the whole vibrations of our body, puts us in tune with the light. And it's the light that is the antidote for the darkness. And so I'm on a fast right now. We fast at the church here. We started during all this spiritual warfare. We fast 3 days out of a month. That's 1/10 of that's in the Bible. That's called a tithe. But anyway, we give 1/10 of our time in fasting and prayer and seeking the Lord. And then we have some longer fasts that happen. We're just getting ready to go into one, which is why I'm fasting now. But we have the days of awe coming up. Ron, I could tell you some stories that would honestly would impress you and crack you up about the power of fasting. Because
listen, if there's one person that could learn a thing or two from maybe the power of fasting, is myself. Well, I could use some fasting. I'm not going to lie. Okay.
Okay. So everybody listening, read a book called Quantum Fasting. It's a great book, Quantum Fasting, by Emerson Farrell. But it talks about what happens, to us vibrationally, which is, all spirits have different vibrations. So we're really talking about understanding the dynamics of what's happening to us spiritually. But anyway, it's a great book, Quantum Fasting. And some spirits only come out through fasting and prayer. We started our Hungry for God fast, is what we call it, 3 days a month. We still do that. We've done it for 30 years now. And and we've just learned as we've gone. I was, I guess, in a certain sense, I was a blank slate because I I didn't know anything about spiritual realities, and so Mark Twain once said, "The only thing that keeps you from learning is thinking that you already know." I think that's a great statement because, particularly when it comes to God and the spirit realm, way too many people act like they know it all, which is a ridiculous concept. The
100%.
concept of God is an infinite power. There's no way for you to know it all. But certainly, a lot of religion postures itself as if they have all the answers, and I think that keeps us from growing and from learning. But fortunately for me, I knew, we have a saying in Idaho: you can't find your butt with both hands. That means you're totally lost. I know I've got a butt around here somewhere.
It's there somewhere. No, I'm with you.
But I didn't know anything about anything, and so I spent a lot of time praying, just learning as I went. There weren't a lot of mental roadblocks to keep me from learning, because I was pretty much a blank slate. But we learned a great deal. Now, from the time that we had that experience by the side of the road in Nevada, and we gave DJ her new name, Deborah Joy Bryan. From that time until October, the night of October 30th, because the occult realm, they celebrate the first 3 hours. The first 2 are the ritual hour, and then the witching hour. That's from midnight to 3 a.m. That's the first 3 hours of the day. So it's actually Halloween. But when people go out to celebrate Halloween, what they don't know is in very dark circles, there have been lots and lots of rituals done the first 3 hours of that day. And then, of course, the Halloween rituals are done later that night. And, I used to be the chaplain for the fire department, and Lou was the chaplain for the sheriff department, and another friend, Jesse, the chaplain for the police department. But all of those things and the hospitals, they double staff on Halloween because of all of the bizarre things that happen. I don't know if all the listeners understand that, but a lot of very bizarre things take place on Halloween. And so Anton began something that I didn't know of at the time, but we soon learned that in the same way that an disembodied spirit, which we would call a demon, but the same way a disembodied spirit can gain access to a human body and then talk and think and act through them, the spirit of a warlock can go onto the astral plane through astral projection and do the same thing, because once that warlock leaves his body, he is essentially a disembodied spirit. The only difference is in the fact that through astral projection, you're still attached to your original meat sack, I call it, but you're still attached through the silver cord. And so that silver cord gives you the right to come back and access that body again. So on the astral plane, you can leave the body attached by the silver cord, but you can actually go into another human being if you have some right of access. Remember, I mentioned topos, the right to act. And so those come through fetishes and mojo bags and rituals and all kinds of stuff that gives access. But in any event, I soon began to have encounters with Anton LaVey, speaking through his birth daughter, Deborah Joy. And
wow.
So
like just keep going. Just keep going, please.
Yeah.
He's talking through. He's talking through.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is now your adopted daughter, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The first indication of that is I thought it was a demon because I knew that she was something was manifesting through her. It wasn't her. By the way, DJ is a very sweet person. It's just a heartbreaker that she spent so many years in such horror, but she's a very, very sweet person.
Correct.
And none of us get to choose where we're born into, right? But anyway, these spirits that would manifest through her, and it would change her demeanor, and so first time Anton showed up, he kicked me in the crotch and then took a swing at me. I was wide open for the kick in the crotch, but the swing I was able to duck, and it was just a different behavior. And I said, "What's your name, demon?" And he just laughed at me. He called me preacher boy till the day he died. He said, "Preacher boy, I'm no demon. I'm far worse than a demon." And then he disclosed that it was Anton LaVey, and he said, "I have, access to her." Of course, they speak very derogatorily toward me and toward her and toward God. But anyway, just very vile, crude, foul creatures. But anyway, that's how I found out about that. Of course, since then, I've encountered that in my exorcisms in different nations, that spirits of warlocks can come in to people. And that's what zombieism is based on in Trinidad. Trinidadian zombieism is where the spirit of a black magic warlock will come into a recently dead body and animate it for a short time before rigor mortis sets in. But anyway, I learned a heck of a lot in a short time. And of course, the church went through all kinds of changes. So the church at the time was over 1,500, and they didn't all stay. Surprise, surprise. But, when we got into intense spiritual warfare, some people just wanted a gentler version of Western Christianity. And I bear them no ill will, but I will say this. The authentic Christianity will take you into the deep end of the pool. It just will. If you want to do the great American religious enterprise, you can do that with very little cost, very little obligation, very little commitment. But if you want to do the real deal, be a follower of Christ who, by the way, gave his life for this, for the redemption of mankind. If you want to authentically follow him, it's going to take you into the deep end of the pool. And that's the only end of the pool where you'll be able to preach the gospel of the kingdom of God throughout the world, and heal the sick and cast out demons, raise the dead. And I'm working on that list now. Ron, I've done plenty of healing the sick and casting out demons and preaching the gospel. I've not yet raised the dead, but I do have a good friend.
Give it time. Okay. Maybe finish that book. Okay. Once you finish that, maybe that's like a last chapter thing where it's like, okay, I know it's all been like blood rituals and like devil's weddings up until this point, but the payoff's here. Okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Some small print.
I eventually finished the book, Ron.
Okay. Right. I'm with you, right?
But I eventually finished the book.
Damn.
And I've read a few of them since then. But so to just bring a wrap to this amazing story, there were months where Anton LaVey was boasting that when Halloween came, that he would prove to me why. He would never use the name Jesus Christ, but he would say, "I'll prove to you why it's better to serve the Samhain or the dread Lord of Death rather than the pathetic weakling." he always called Jesus the pathetic weakling. And that's because, and he told me this personally one time, again through Deborah Joy, but somehow we got to talking about the resurrection of Christ. And he said, that's the deception of Christianity. He said, everyone knows that Jesus Christ was the Son of God who came to try to save mankind. But as Luciferians, we understand that he did his very best. He lived his life to be the savior of mankind, but he died and remained dead, and that's why Christianity is a failure. So it's really interesting to me that at least Luciferian Satanism, they believe that Jesus Christ was the Son of God that came for the redemption of mankind, but they believe that he failed. And so that the whole world is under the power of darkness, wickedness, and eventually all goodness will be snuffed out, not just Jesus Christ. So what makes Christianity unique, of course, is believing in resurrection life. And that's why in some places, like in Aztec, Mexico, in the unstable zone, I have a good friend there, David Hogan, and he's raised over 40 people from the dead. I've been down there and visited with people, heard their testimonies of being dead for several days, and being able to hear the prayers being prayed for them, and then being sent back into their body at the request of those that were praying for them. And amazing stories down there. But did you ever see, or any of the listeners may have seen, the movie that Mel Gibson did called Apocalypto?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the dedication of the Temple of the Sun in Aztec, Mexico. And they did over 50,000 human sacrifices to Quetzalcoatl, the serpent god. And that's where David Hogan is sharing the good news of the gospel of Christ. So, he told me, I went down there and yeah, I went, I went down there, and I was said, hey, David, what's it take to be a leader down here? He was going through different things. He said, well, if you want to be a regional leader down here, they call them elders, but a regional leader, he said, you have to have a verifiable resurrection. And that to me, Ron, was like, what? And because in America, I don't know about Europe, but you don't hear of people being raised from the dead much.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, listen, it depends how you look at it, right? Because technically, people are raised from the dead daily with those defibrillator things, right?
Well, yeah, yeah.
But you need to do it with the built-in defibrillators. Do you know what I'm saying? You got to do it with you got to go bare, hand.
Yeah, yeah.
So we could argue, right, that people are raised from the dead every day, but not without a little help, if you see what I'm saying.
Right.
So I would say man raised from dead would be quite a headline. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
anyway, David says, if you want to be a regional leader down here, you have to have a verifiable resurrection, because the Aztec warlocks, they can transmogrify, shapeshift, transport, curse people to death, do all kinds of things. But what they cannot do is raise the dead. So that's the one thing that distinguishes an authentic Christian leader from the black magic warlocks in central Mexico is, can you raise the dead? That's sort of like, that's where you throw down in the showdown. And so, it was interesting to me. I said, wow, David, I've never raised the dead. I guess I couldn't be a leader for you down here. He calls me little brother. He said, oh, little brother, if you lived down here, you'd be raising the dead. He said, it's about the culture of pervasive disbelief in the West. He said the West has a whole culture of disbelief because of secular humanism. There's no such thing as supernatural. Miracles don't happen. There's no spirits. There's no angels. There's no. It's a whole bunch of religious BS. But what it does is it darkens the mind. And so you think that the only thing that is real is this dimension. Well, what a limited view, right?
Right.
And so so anyway, but he said I don't raise the dead much. He said it's happened in America, but he said it happens all the time in Mexico because everybody has faith for extreme supernaturalism. And boy, oh boy, he's got a lot of amazing stories. I'm going with him to India again this year. And we went to Siliguri, India, and that's where Kali worship. Kali is the goddess of that region. And I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's quite a grisly mistress. She always depicted with blood dripping out of her mouth, and she has a severed head in her hand.
I do know who you're talking about, actually. Hang on.
Yeah, Kali, Kali. But anyway, we went right to Siliguri, where the Kali temple is. You talk about spiritual warfare, bro. That's taking it to a whole
Do you
level.
want to know what's crazy? I know a demon hunter, and one of the 2 or 3 religious, like deities, if you will, that have appeared to help her, and one of them was Kali, and she was a vicious sword swing. She wasn't having none of it. Right?
Yeah.
None of it.
Yeah,
and she actually said very powerful. She'd said that Jesus had turned up a couple of times, and he would just touch the demon. You know what I'm saying? Like, as you would expect him to. Slow walk, flicking his hair, beard blowing in the wind, and just poof and away. Do you know what I'm saying? Just kill you with kindness. Poof, off you pop. And that's how you imagine it. Because I'm telling you now, you wouldn't want to cause a scene. Right. I feel like Jesus would be like, I don't want to cause a scene. If we just got to eradicate this demon, we'll just boink and off they go. You know what I'm saying? I can see that. But Kali was the other one. And
well, a lot of people don't understand the pantheon of the gods, Ron. And if you don't mind me just wading into that for a minute.
Go for it, please.
One of the misunderstood characteristics of the God of the Bible, he goes by different names, but Yahweh the Almighty, one of his names is El Elyon. And there is a Psalm of David, Psalm 82. It's very fascinating, and it's not talked about much, but that's where El Elyon identifies himself as the God who rules all other gods. And so that's how it starts out. Of course, it's in English. And so it says the Almighty, right? The Almighty rules over the council of the gods and brings them into judgment for their deeds. And that's something that is well understood. I actually think that the Greeks had a better understanding of it than 20th century Americans, including the great American religious enterprise, because they don't like to talk about other gods, but there are very powerful gods, and there have always been very powerful gods. The thing that we need to remember is there is such a personage as El Elyon, the God who rules over all gods. And you should read that, Ron, and anybody that's listening. Read.
You know what's it's fascinating, right? Because you're talking about something that is out there that can be read, and I feel like I've been on my own spiritual journey, and that is the exact place I've ended on my journey. All gods to me have it's almost like, this is going to sound really stupid, right? But just think you're like of a character selection, right, in a game where you've got different characters that have different skill sets that can be applied to different things. And I strongly have landed on a place where I've got the gods I worship and follow, But then all the other gods, you've got to kind of get to know them on a friendly basis. You've got to kind of introduce yourself and find out what their skill sets can bring. And I've always said that there's some things in this world that you cannot defeat with love. Sometimes you need to bring in a barbarian to swing an axe. And for the deities that are moving forward in 2025, the old gods and the entities that kind of get forgotten about, because it's hard to place a lot of them in a modern world where pillaging isn't a thing anymore. Okay. So,
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to bring out the heavies, you know?
Yeah.
And
well, yeah. So here's my view on some of that, Ron.
Sure.
Is there are, Paul the Apostle said there are gods many and lords many, but we serve the Lord of Lords and the God of gods. Why doesn't the Western Church recognize that? There are many lords and there are many gods. And that's
terrible. That's terrible for business. Okay. Terrible for business. If you're the fear-mongering machine that is the organized religious faiths, oh man, you can't go off-brand. Coca-Cola can't be promoting Pepsi. You know what I'm saying? They need to keep you focused and emptying your pockets, you know?
Yeah. But I read Psalm 82 when you get a chance, because Psalm 82 should be understood in connection with what we call the Tower of Babel. And that's in Genesis 11. And in Psalm 82, God is pronouncing judgment against the host. He calls them Ben Ha'elim, the Elohim, which is the sons of God. He says, "You're my sons. I have called you gods." But then he goes on to say, "But you haven't represented me well, and you've ruled poorly over the kingdoms of men, and because of that, I'll come to judge you." And he goes on, he says, "Should you not have represented me with justice and truth? But you haven't." It's a very interesting passage of scripture. Now, if you travel in the nations, like for instance, I've done a lot of work in Cambodia. Ron, when you fly into Phnom Penh, and you're leaving the airport, it has a sign that says "Welcome to Cambodia," and on the right hand is Naga, and on the left hand of this huge billboard is Apsara. Those are the gods of Cambodia. One is the destroyer, one is the seductress. If you look at the history of the nation, it's been devastated by.
I was going to say those aren't particularly like. I mean, of two things you could have picked, destruction and seduction.
Yeah,
it's not going to end well at all.
No, and it's not ended well for Cambodia. The Khmer people have been devastated through that. But the point is that entire nation, it's a billboard, right? It's saying, "Welcome to Cambodia. You're now in our domain." I've been over there, and the domains of the because of Psalm 82, they're called the fallen gods, right? They're the ones that El Elyon judged, but in different cultures, they're called.
Are those the ones that became the Watchers, or is that a different set of fallen?
Well, no, Watchers is a genre of created being, a very powerful genre, and so there are holy Watchers and there are fallen Watchers. But it was the Watcher genre that rebelled in Genesis 6 and perverted the seed line of humankind on the earth. That's the Nephilim. And all the weirdness that happened there. That was the fallen Watchers.
Is this Cain and Abel era, right? That's all part of that kind of storyline, yeah? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. Well, it was Noah was 8 generations from Cain and Abel. But anyway, the great flood was the judgment of not the fallen ones. They were judged by God in Psalm 82. but the judgment of the children, the offspring of the fallen ones, that it was the great flood. And that's the whole Nephilim story. We could talk for hours about the Nephilim and the fact that it's happening again.
Pastor, I've seen the movie Noah with Russell Crowe, and that's about all the information I've got. And I love like when a movie like that depicts the scary version of the Bible. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when they go into like I can see why this is an 18. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's not, like there is some, like it was just the way that they done it all was amazing. And I mean, just those stories in the Bible and these, Nephilims and people living for 200 years and all of this is one of the factors again that people dismiss along with all the other supernatural stuff. Oh, so Moses is just 400 years old because healthcare was just awesome at that time. Was that what we're going with? Is it? I got some questions. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I do see what you're saying. Yeah.
You have to apply the magical, the mystical, and all of it. Yeah. Either that or it's all aliens, Pastor Dave. Okay, it's either magic and mystical or it's aliens. It's one of the two. Okay, it's one of the two.
Even if you want to go for aliens, it's supernatural.
Of course it is. Of course
years ago, I had a friend, Ron, that was writing a book, and the book was called Glory Rising.
Yeah.
And because I'd had so many experiences, he asked me to write a chapter in his book on transcending physics. And
easy peasy, no problem. Just rattle that out in the bath one Sunday. Do you know what I'm saying? Wow.
Well, so I wrote this. You're going to think this is funny. It is funny. I wrote a chapter on transcending physics, and I told some stories. And it's always amazing to me that people think somehow that physics should govern the spiritual realm. What a ridiculous thought.
It's beyond ridiculous.
It's called physics because it's the physical realm.
Yep.
So we need to put together a textbook on spirits that govern the spiritual realm.
I completely utterly agree. I completely and utterly agree. But do you not think though, there's a certain mindset? Like for me, it wouldn't diminish religions or gods if we find out that it's almighty beings in a spaceship rather than almighty beings up in a cloud. And I think for some people, it's almost like a toxic thought process to even imagine that it could be anything other than a man in a cloud, metaphorically speaking. Multiple people in cloud. And do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
It fascinates me. All of it fascinates me. You know, like for example, why were the Aztecs digging up all that gold? Second of all, how were they digging up all that gold, Pastor Dave? Right? Because were they just pulling it? And why? It's useless at that point in human civilization. Shiny gold metal, right, means nothing. So why are they pulling it out of the grounds and covering everything in it? Okay. I got some questions for that. The wheel hasn't even been invented, but the Aztecs are like, we are master miners. Okay. Yeah, right. It blows my mind. It blows my mind.
All right. So I went down to one of the Mexican, the Aztec ruins, to a pyramid. And I'm listening to this guy that is explaining how they built the pyramid thousands of years ago, that is still in perfect tune with the North Star. And on one day a year, a little window, the North Star is visible that shines down onto an altar. And so I'm talking to this guy. He says, well, you know, we were really smart. And I let him do his spiel, you know, because he's getting paid to do a spiel. I didn't want to embarrass him. But after the tourists were gone, I went up to him and I said, hey, let's talk about what really happened here. He said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, you tried to let us know that your Aztec ancestors were smarter than the rest of us, and they figured this out. He said, yeah. I said, well, you and I both know that's not true. He said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, how did you do on gunpowder or the internal combustion engine
or the
any
CD or a vinyl? How do you take a plastic disc, Dave, and just slap sound on it? Nah, witchcraft. That is some occult magic right there. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And he said, well, we saw the stars really accurately because we use reflection pools. I said, that's ridiculous. Reflection pools are still around. Nobody's figuring out how to make a pyramid like this. And I said, would you tell me what your grandfather would have said? And he said, I'll tell you if you don't tell anybody else here.
Okay.
I said, okay, son, since we're not there, I'm telling everybody. But anyway, he said it was the star people. And I said, okay, unpack that. What did your grandfather teach you? He said that beings came down from the stars, and they taught us all kinds of things. And that's why we know what they taught us, and we don't know things that they didn't teach us, because it wasn't about a superior intellect in a native tribe. It was about fallen watchers that came down and taught them things. And so anyway, I've had quite a few experiences like that. But, I think it would help everybody if we would quit trying to act like anybody knew it all. And that we would say, okay, since there's an infinite universe, there's an infinite creator, there's an infinite mind. That's a no-brainer. And so since we don't even understand the concept of infinity, our brain,
we've not even reached the bottom of the ocean yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Like once we reach the bottom there, then we can comprehend endless space and all that. Because I got some questions about endless space, Pastor Dave. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, but then here comes theologians who write books like What the Bible Really Teaches, and it's like, honestly, you don't know what the Bible really teaches. You see a few shadows of this and that. Some of the greatest minds of Scripture said, we still look through a glass darkly, but someday we will know as we're known, right? But this whole idea that we've already got it all figured out causes a lot more damage than anything else. And it comes out of pride, and pride never leads you in a good direction. Hubris, that kind of thing.
True. It's true.
And the Bible, I love the Bible. I read it all the time. I was reading it this morning, but it says only through pride comes contentions. That was written by Solomon, the wise king. But think about that. Humble people, they don't argue with other people, right? You have an opinion, and if I'm arrogant, I'll say, oh, no, you're wrong about that, Ron. And I know that you're wrong because I'm right. But a humble person says, well, that's not the way I see it. But, there's a lot of things that I don't understand. And so we can agree to disagree and love each other. It's not going to be a big deal, because nobody's trying to put the other one down because in order to prove they're smarter than they are. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
So I think we need a whole lot more of that in the world. And
I think so too. I really do. But keep in mind, we live in a day and age where if anybody wants to just say we were smarter back then and there was no higher power with the pyramids, Pastor Dave, go and buy them one of the Lego set pyramids and tell them to call you when they've lined it up perfectly with all of the other pyramids that exist across the world, and when they've got it perfectly lined up with the stars, tell them to call you and ask them what technology they've used in order to make this happen. Because I've got a funny feeling.
Yeah.
There's going to be a day's worth of enthusiasm when they're putting that Lego together. But when they're stood out in a field going, this is a bit more complicated than actually I thought. Do you know what I'm saying? It's bonkers.
I do know what you're saying. Hey, Ron, I don't know if we have time to or not. But do you want to hear how Anton died?
Hell, no. Yes, please. I would, thank you. You know, at the end of the last show, right, I'm pretty sure I took the Lord's name in vain and then said something to do with hell. And Shane phoned me after and he's like, listen, man, like you were doing so well. And then at the end of it, you said this and this. And I'm like, I'm going to make sure I'm going to watch, because it's rude. It's rude to say things like that. And so yes, please.
You're all good, Ron. You're all good. Actually, hell is a biblical concept. So
right.
Anyway, so I'll tell you what happened. Things got more and more intense with the Church of Satan. They started calling the church. They left I don't know how many recordings, but we actually forwarded 6 of their recordings to the Attorney General of the state of California, because they were planning, they were comments like, we're going to dismember all of your family. We're going to make your children watch while we dismember you. Or and just gross, dark, evil, funky stuff.
Yep.
And so we turned some of those into the Attorney General's office of the state. Threats to burn down the campus, burn down our house with us in it, those kind of things. But there were a lot of miscellaneous weirdnesses. We would find in town at our house, we'd find multiple rattlesnakes in our yard.
Oh my God. Do you know what? I've been waiting to ask you for some reason, this whole interview. I've been meaning to ask you about the snakes, and I've not said it yet, but I've been meaning to ask you about that for like the last hour, and I don't know why. So this is why. So sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, we would find snakes on our church property, and snakes. It's possible for a snake to crawl into town, but it's not common, that's for sure. But the idea of us finding multiple rattlesnakes on our front porch, that's not going to happen unless there's some kind of occult activity there, or at least supernatural activity. So a lot of those kind of things happened. And like I said, the blood sacrifices. And during this time, we were taking DJ through deliverance, and she was renouncing. We went one by one through not all the satanic ritual abuse, because that was, her whole upbringing was the worst vile kind of rituals. But what would happen is, when we were taking through deliverance, if she had a really strong memory about a certain ritual, then we would unpack that. And what I mean by that is we would nullify the effect of any curse words that were spoken against her during those rituals. And I think last time we talked, you mentioned something about spelling and words and how profoundly powerful words are. But that's what, of course, curses and blessings are made up of words. And so, we would take her through renouncing those things. If she participated in anything, or even was forced to participate, we'd just renounce that she, in the spirit realm, she wants nothing to do with any of the evil that was perpetrated through that ritual. And the spirits that came into her through those rituals, they will stay there until you have dismantled the spell that brought them, right? The curse that brought them. And so we did a lot of that. And some of it's painstaking. Anybody that's ever taken anybody through satanic ritual abuse deliverance, what has happened to these people is carefully plotted and perpetrated against them for years, and it can't be undone in 15 minutes. It's a process of little by little.
Yeah. The more you delve into, cases of, the real cases of modern ritualistic abuse in this sense, they seem to have weaponize the ability to fragment the mind into what science calls DID, right? And you know yourself, if you've got a medical file this size, okay, because of the trauma, and all of a sudden you try and fight your case in court, right? And you're technically seen as this, insane person. Is that not just the purest of evil ploys in these individuals' plans? Because it's that fragmenting that completely assures no one's going to buy this, and it's a sad reality for so many victims. It really is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just along those lines, you may want to jot down the name James Martinez. I don't know if you know James. He's a friend of mine. He co-authored the first book that was called MK Ultra CIA Mind Control. And then he authored the second volume of MK Ultra CIA Mind Control. I just did 5 podcasts with him about what's happening in modern day mind control and association with 5G and 6G, and also what's happening with artificial intelligence. There's a whole lot going on.
I think I'd like to talk to him, if I'm being honest. It sounds like another great conversation. Also, Mary, I know we've done it again. Okay. Me and Dave are the masters of the side quest during our conversations. Okay. If we'll stay on track for about 30 seconds and then one of us will just go and take a left turn. So,
all right. Anton, this is how Anton died. I see the question from Mary. Okay. So anyway, everything was heating up as we moved toward the date where we knew that the last ritual, which was the Bride of Satan ceremony, was scheduled, and that was Halloween morning. To us, it would be the night between the 30th and the 31st, but it would be the first 3 hours of October 31st in 1997, and we knew that would be the time where they needed her to be at the Satanic Ranch to do the Bride of Satan ceremony. So, but we didn't know how that would happen. And again, I grew up on a ranch in Idaho. My dad was a gunsmith and a boxer, and so I don't mind at all just saying, hey, we can do this in either dimension. If you want to do this spiritually, we can fight spiritually. If you want to bring it into this realm, then we're going to win there too. So that's why, we have a really great security team. A lot of times, most of the time I'm armed, and I certainly was during those days. And, I honestly, I love life. I know that life is divine. I hope to live my entire life without killing someone. However, as you mentioned earlier, the thing that is very plain to me is that if an evil person threatened anybody that I loved, I would readily use whatever force was necessary to keep that from happening. And that would include lethal force. And so during those days, we never knew from day to day if we would get in a shootout and if it would be natural or spiritual, But anyway, we were ready for both. And so as we moved into Halloween week, we were again fasting and praying. Now, the church had shrunk down from people who just wanted to do the great American religious enterprise, didn't want to be bothered by anything supernatural. And I just felt like that was no different than getting down to fighting weight. The church family was, we were dealing with the fatty tissue blobs, we were getting down to fighting weight. And so that's what happened. And really serious-minded people stayed, people that understood that there's a spiritual realm, and that when the Bible talks about us being good soldiers of Christ. It's literal. There's a fight to fight. When the Bible talks about us having a great adversary, it's literal. And so, so anyway, it sorted out good. And but the church was still hundreds of people strong, and we were doing a lot more praying. During that time, we got curse cards from all over the world. We got them from Europe. We got them from Sweden. We got them from Italy. And they would say, we're cursing you during, the solstice or whatever. And so, it was a fairly intense time. I got to say that. And we were learning as we went. And of course, nobody learns everything at once, right? So we learned some of our lessons the hard way and things that didn't work out well. But anyway, as we moved toward the week of Halloween, we were fasting and praying. We had a team of 10 people that were like, I would consider them like Green Beret, right? They were not your run of the mill. They knew how to fast and pray. They all knew how to cast out demons. By that time, we had learned. We'd all had plenty of practice. And what I left out, Ron, is during this time, I wrote a full-page article in our newspaper, and it was called "What's Up with Witchcraft?" And I talked about all the things that you could get into trouble in, and Satanism, and all kinds of stuff, Ouija boards. So I just unpacked the whole thing. And I said, if you are having trouble at night by evil spirits, if you're having night terrors or any kind of torments, come to the Church of Glad Tidings and we'll help you. Oh boy, that livened things up. And so we started then doing weekly, we called them tearing down strongholds. And we'd have these classes where you'd come, we'd say, okay, this is for everybody that is plagued by fear. The Lord is with us. We fear nothing evil. That's the standard. So if you fear the dark, if you fear heights, if you fear spiders, whatever, we're going to deal with the strongholds of fear that impact people's souls. So we had started doing a lot of stuff like that, which, by the way, we still do. And all that can be found online at churchgladtidings.com in the store. But so the church was growing stronger and stronger in spiritual warfare and the understanding of that. And so Halloween week finally came. We had our 10 Green Beret, the prayer team. And I said, listen, we don't know what shape this is going to take. We don't know if it will, how much it'll spill into the physical realm, or how much it'll stay into the spiritual realm. But whether it's physical or spiritual, we need to have our game face on. So, I was all strapped up with 45s and ready to go and fasting and praying.
45 in one hand, big gold cross in the other, and you're just like, come on, baby. At me, bro. Come at me.
Come on, baby. Yeah. So like, hey, I didn't know how they were going to bring it. I just knew that God had called us to make sure that the good guys won. And so I had the prayer team come over to our house. I said, we know that they're going to focus on the witching hour. That's where DJ has to be in Grass Valley, which is an hour from here. So my thoughts is to be very, very careful all day on the 30th. And but increasingly, as it comes to that time slot, I want the whole team to meet at our house. Everybody had been fasting and praying. We were going to meet there from 9 o'clock to midnight, and then just see what happened, because we knew, there's going to be fireworks that night. So anyway, the team came over, but before they got there, I was sitting on the front porch. I'd been praying all day. Cheryl was, we had the big Victorian house, and Cheryl was guarding the back door and I was guarding the front door. And so anyway, about 9-ish, somewhere just before 9, DJ came out. She said, "How's it going, Dad?" She seemed like her usual sweet self. I said, "Pretty good. What are you doing?" She said, "I'm going for a walk." And I said, "What?"
Like,
She
no, you're
said,
not.
I'm just going for a little walk." I said, "No, DJ, you're not going for a walk. It's Halloween Eve." And she said, "Oh, Dad, you worry too much. God always protects us." And I said, "Yeah, but God doesn't give us a free hall pass for stupid. So we're not going on a walk alone tonight." And so, she complained a little bit, said she wanted coffee. I said, "Listen, DJ, go up to your room and pray. Uh, I'll bring you a cup of coffee, but we're not going out on any walks tonight." So she went up to her room. I took her a cup of coffee. She again said, "Oh, you worry too much. I'm at my age, you having me locked in my room." And so I went down. I told Cheryl, I said, "DJ's not really thinking real straight." And she told me she was wanting to go for a walk. So the first thing Cheryl said is, "Did you to look into her eyes?" Because the eyes are the windows of the soul. And people have demons. You can look into their eyes and tell. Often you can. Sometimes you can't, but many times you can. And so I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "Hey, look at me for a minute, honey. Are you doing okay?" And she came up and I looked into her eyes and I said, I didn't see anything. It could, because spirits can do all kinds of things, including there are cloaking spirits that hide things from people. But anyway, I said I didn't notice anything, but I think it's odd that she asked to go for a walk. So anyway, I went back out front to pray, and I just sat down to pray, and I heard sirens. You know how you hear sirens long way off, and you think, "Gee, they seem to be getting closer and closer." So anyway, there was a code run on our house, and we had 3 police cars pull up simultaneously, lights and sirens. And when that happened, DJ ran out of the door behind me, and she started flipping me off and cussing at me. Well, I knew that wasn't DJ because she's sweet as the day is long. And then the spirit called me preacher boy. And I thought, "Oh my
Oh, here we
goodness,
go.
here we go." And so, but then Ron, I mean, think about it. My first reaction is I jumped up and I ran to hug her because I knew she was in trouble. And the police officers, they drew down on me with their guns, told me to spread eagle on the lawn. And so I was spread eagle on the lawn. They had their guns drawn, and I was listening to Anton taunt me. He's saying,
Wow.
You don't think you're so smart now, do you, preacher boy?" He said, I told you that when Halloween came, I would show you why we serve the dread Lord of Death instead of the pathetic weakling." So there I am. And what do you do, Ron? I'm spread eagle on the ground. The police had responded to a phone call that Anton made through Deborah Joy. But anyway, they can fully manipulate, the human body.
We call it in the modern world, we call it swatting, right? Where someone makes a false police, like for example, Pastor Dave's locked inside his house. He's got a gun. He's threatening his family.
Yeah.
The police turn up.
Yeah.
And, let's be honest. You're standing there all 45'd up. One wrong move and it's death by cop. It's death by cop, And
Exactly. So anyway, now I'm face down on the ground listening to Anton mock me and knowing that I can't tell the police officers what's going on because they would not
that would go down real well. Excuse me, officer. Just so you know, we're in the middle of a spiritual war between basically the designated emissary of Satan and the church. Just give us like 45 minutes, okay?
Right.
I get it. It's a perfect, It's a perfect scenario that was created against you.
It was a perfect scenario. And what had happened is he had gone into her. He had called the police from the upstairs and said, please rescue me. My name is Ramona Jarnigan. I've been taken hostage by Pastor Dave Bryan. He has trapped me and held me as a prisoner, a kidnapped prisoner in his home. He's sodomized me. He's beat me. He's tortured me for months. And I finally just got my hands on a phone. So anyway, that's what had happened. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this to the audience last week, but our motto was find a need, meet it, find a hurt, and heal it. So one of the programs we started was called the Trauma Intervention Program. And so the leader of the Trauma Intervention Program was Lou Benninger. And he was the guy that I originally shook hands with and said, let's try to do what Jesus did. If it doesn't work, we'll go smoke dope together. It was that guy.
Right. Okay.
Lou.
Yeah.
And so he is the trauma intervention officer. And so he hears that everybody's on a code run to Pastor Dave Bryan's house. Right. Okay. So he comes tearing over. Well, one of the officers that was there to arrest me, his wife went to our church. And so he came over and he said, I was spread eagle on our lawn. He said, you can get up, but he said, I want you to sit right here on the porch. And he said, I know that you know who I am, and I know who you are. The bad news is you've been charged with 4 very egregious felonies. And he said, we're going to have to arrest you. And so he said, we're just kind of working out the details here tonight.
Can I just ask, at any point, are you thinking, oh my God?
Oh yeah. I'm thinking, oh my God.
Plan? No, like I've been sucked into a plan. This was the plan all along. This is what all of this was. Because, I mean, at that moment where the police turn up and then you're hearing, the voice of her father taunting you, you now know that's not your daughter anymore. And she comes out with that. You must have been thinking,
I was praying. This is what I was praying. I was praying, Lord Jesus, please don't let them succeed at this. This is the epitome of deceptive pride. He's planned to do it all along. Please don't let this be successful. And boy, I was praying my best prayer at the time. But now Steve's talking to me, and I said, listen, Steve, I'm going to tell you something that just between me and you. I hope you won't tell those other guys. I just want you to know that even though you have no grid for this, Ramona Jarnigan has changed her name to Deborah Joy Bryan. That's her legal name. Deborah Joy loves us, and I've never hurt her in any way. I know the scenario that just unfolded, but you need to know that she is not under her own power. And if you take her away from here tonight, my fear is that she will die tonight. And so, the police officer looked at me and he said, how about we just play like you didn't say any of that? How about we just play like I didn't hear that. He said, you realize there's nothing whatsoever that I can do with that information. And I said, I realize that, Steve. I just had to say something to somebody.
The perfect trap.
The perfect trap. And so just as I had finished talking to Steve, Lou Benninger shows up as the trauma intervention counselor. And he's got a badge and everything.
Wood dweller. The bare-chested hippie wood dwelling dude, right? Who's now the trauma guy, right? Yeah.
The trauma intervention officer. So he shows up. They all knew him as the trauma intervention officer. They didn't know him as one of the pastors of the Church of Glad Tidings. And so he walks up, he's got his trauma intervention badge on, and he says, hey, what's going on here? They say, well, the good pastor here has just been accused of 4 different egregious felonies, and we're going to have to take him in. So Lou came over to me. He said, "Can I talk to him?" Sure. And so Lou came over to me. He said, "What is going on?" I said, "Lou, some of this you may not understand, but the spirit that is motivating DJ's body right now is Anton LaVey. He's somewhere around here. He's astral projected into her. He's framed me for these felonies, and they're planning to arrest me. We have to somehow keep that from happening, or Deborah Joy will be sacrificed tonight at the ritual." So he says, "Well, what are we going to do about that?" I said, "I don't know." But I said, "Here's Cheryl's flip phone." I just hand it to him, and I said, "See if you can get in the back of the squad car and put that phone in DJ's coat pocket," because it was the 30th of October and it was cool and she had a jacket on. So I said, "Don't expect her to recognize you as a friend, because it's not her." So he got into the back of the car. Of course, she was cussing and swinging at him and whatnot. He just put his head down and leaned into her and dropped that phone in the pocket and got out. And he went over to the police. He said, "Boy, she's on a wild one." And there's a verse in the Bible where God promises that if we're doing his will and we're doing our best, that he'll give us the words to speak at crucial times. And that happened that night so clearly. So Lou went over there, unrehearsed, of course. It was all just happening on the fly. And he said, "Do you realize who you have in the back of your car?" And they said, "Well, yeah, no, we're just going over that." She said her name was Ramona Jarnigan, but the pastor says she's changed her name to Deborah Joy Bryan. He said, "Yeah." He said, "Either way, she's a frequent flyer at mental health." And they said, "What?" And he said, "Have you seen her mental health records?" They said, "No." And he said, "Well, it's your call, guys, but I'd take that into consideration." He said, "You're about to arrest one of the most well-respected pastors in this area, who has a reputation for helping broken people. He and his wife have been helping broken people for 20 years. And now you're going to arrest him for taking advantage of a broken person." And they said, "Well, he'd been accused of sodomy, rape, torture, and kidnapping." And he's, and Lou, just with the wisdom of God, he said, "Yeah, but he was accused of sodomy, rape, torture, and kidnapping by a mental health frequent flyer. On another day, she might think he's the king of England." And he said, "It's up to you guys." But he said, "I know this guy. I know this church. If you arrest him and that hits the newspapers, I think your department's going to be sued, and I think you're all going to lose your jobs." And he said, I know it's a tough call. It's your call to make, but please understand who you're dealing with here, because she has been in mental health her entire life, which many demonized people are." So anyway, Lou came walking back over to us and said, I suggested they don't arrest you. I don't know what's going to happen. But then they came over and they said, "Hey, we were talking to the trauma intervention counselor, and well, I think we've decided not to arrest you tonight. We're going to release you on your own recognizance. But this is the stipulation, that you don't try to contact Deborah Joy in any way. Don't follow us. Don't try to contact her by phone. Just know that if anything like that happens, we'll come after you." So they took her away in a squad car. She pulled out of our driveway like this, laughing. Right. And I just said, "Oh God, don't let this this blasphemy happen. Just for your name's sake, forget about me, but just for the sake of the name of Christ, don't let this happen." So So anyway, when they were around the corner, Lou said, "What now?" And I said, "Well, I'm all strapped up. I'm going to head for the Satanic Ranch because Anton is astral projecting, and so he's out of his body." And so I said, he knows that he can only stay out of his body for a couple of hours. So it may be that they're staging the body somewhere locally, and it may be that his physical body is in Grass Valley. But I'm going to head up there, and of course my wife didn't want me to go. She said, "What are you going to do up there?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but I'm going to either go Old Testament or New Testament on them." I said, "I'm either going to kick in the doors and rescue Deborah Joy, or I'm going to die trying. But I'm not going to let her be sacrificed to Satan after all that she's been through."
Were the police going to take her back to her father?
No, well, we didn't know what the police were going to do.
You weren't taking the risk, right? You were just like, right.
Yeah, I just knew that the ritual was going to happen at the ranch. So sooner or later, she had to come there, right? And
I just want to double check. I'm not rushing. I just want to double check. You're okay for time right now, right?
Yeah, I didn't know how long we'd go, so I'm good.
Okay, keep going. That's fine.
But so I just knew that they had to have her physically there by midnight, and it was about 10 o'clock at the time. So I said, I'm going to go up there, and Anton and his henchmen drove around in a black hearse with tinted windows, and I said, I'm going to look for the black hearse, and if I see it, I'm going to shoot the tires out, and I'm going to save Deborah or die trying. But anyway, so I headed for Marysville, and I told Lou asked if I wanted me to go with them. I said, no, I'd like you to stay with Cheryl, make sure she's safe tonight, because they'd threatened all kinds of evil things about Cheryl. And I said, if I were you, I would go to Hell Motel. Now, right across the river from us, there was a little motel that we had nicknamed Hell Motel. And the reason we did is that's where DJ was living when the witches tried to kill her. There's a lot of black magic that happens there, a lot of funky stuff. And so I thought if there's any safe place for Anton to do a ritual and to astral project from, it would be Hell Motel.
It's funky
so
time.
I asked Lou and Cheryl to go watch Hell Motel and call me if they saw anything. So I was just headed out of town up into the foothills, and Lou called and said the police, a squad car just pulled up. Deborah Joy got out, but she's walking like a zombie. And that's, the whole idea. Anybody that's seen a zombie movie knows that they lurch along and they're not real smooth. That's what happens a lot of times when another spirit is controlling the physical body. They don't walk like them. There's just something about them that's a little different. So anyway, that's what he said. He said, DJ just got out of the car. She's walking like a zombie. As soon as that happened, I said, I'm coming back to you. I'll keep an eye on the back door. And I'll try to get there before they try to leave. So I turned around. I was only about 10 minutes away from where Hell Motel was at the time. So I turned around and I called the phone because I knew that she was out of the squad car, which means if I'd have called while she's in the squad car, they'd have come and arrested me. That was the stipulation. We'll let you loose, but don't try to contact her. So when Lou saw her get out of the squad car, I called that little mobile phone, and sure enough, it was the voice of Anton LaVey. He answered that phone. He said, "Very clever, preacher boy." He said, "Unfortunately, you're too late." He said, "Didn't I tell you that on Halloween you would see why I serve the dread Lord instead of the pathetic weakling?" And then he began to just blaspheme and just say, evil, dreadful things about Christ and Christianity, and he hung up. And so when that happened, I mentioned this to you, Ron, but for me, I'm just a simple cowboy, but I have learned to know when God's speaking to me, because I have thoughts that are above my level. They're profoundly wise or whatever, right? Or profoundly loving or kind or something, right?
Cool.
It's just like, that's beyond me. That has to be a God thought. So as soon as I hung up, I got this thought just clear as a bell, cut his silver cord. And I knew about the silver cord because Anton, of course, he taught astral projection to the Department of Defense for the military. He had above top secret clearance in the Pentagon. He pioneered the remote viewing program, which is astral spying. So he had a lot of friends in high places, and he was a master at astral projection. And so I knew about the silver cord, and I had even talked to a man that lived in Southern California at the time about cutting the silver cord, because I knew that a phenomenon of people who die during astral projection, which some do, it's not that uncommon, but their silver cord deteriorates or is somehow broken, and they lose access to their physical body, which means they are now in the realm, on the plane of the disembodied spirits. They don't have a body anymore.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I knew that could happen. I had talked to a guy in Van Nuys, California about that. And we just kind of mused about cutting the silver cord, because a verse in the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, written by Solomon, it says, serve God before your silver cord is cut, which is, in that context, it's just saying, while you're still alive, choose to serve God. And so I thought, silver cord being cut, that's synonymous as death. Of course, Solomon was the author of all the Kabbalistic literature, right? The keys, the greater and lesser keys of Solomon. So he knew a huge amount about the spirit realm. So I knew that. That's all I knew. But now this voice is saying, cut his silver cord. And so I wasn't there to the hotel yet, but I called Lou back and I said, Lou and Cheryl, pray to cut Anton's silver cord. And Lou said, won't that kill him? I said, yeah, but it's either him or DJ. And God told me cut his silver cord. So I said, I'm on my way back. I'll call Jill. Jill was, she's still one of our head intercessors and one of our pastoral team, but she was heading up that Green Beret team that had joined in fasting and prayer for that night. So by now they were all over at our house. We were gone. I knew they'd probably be wondering where we were. And so I called Jill and I said, just form a circle, join hands, everybody pray together for Anton's silver cord to be cut. And she asked the same thing, won't that kill him? I said, yeah, it's either him or DJ. And he's forced this, and God told me to do it. So anyway, by that time, I had made it to Hell Motel. Cheryl and Lou were guarding the back door. I went to the front door, and I just parked my car right in the street, threw the door open. I was standing in the street like this, praying for God to cut Anton LaVey's silver cord. And they were just, a few yards away up in one of the rooms. But as I was standing there praying, DJ burst through the front door, and she saw me. She calls me Daddy still. And she said, Daddy, help. And she came running over. We jumped in the car, and I took off. And while we were driving, I said, DJ, how did you escape? And this is what she said. She said, well, Anton, when his spirit left my body to go back into his own body, suddenly, of course, she comes back conscious, right? And so Anton left to go back into his physical body. and was bouncing. And that's the term that's used when astral projection in that realm, people that have a hard time getting back into their body, they call it bouncing. And if you permanently bounce, you're dead, right? So sometimes they keep trying to get back into their body, and they call it bouncing. So she said Anton bounced, and I said, well, how'd you get out of the room? She said, well, the whole coven was gathered around his body, imploring Lucifer to somehow help them to let him back into his body. And she said, I sat up and nobody was looking at me. I just jumped out, ran out the door. When I got to the bottom of the stairs, you were standing there. So now Lou and Cheryl, they're right behind us in a car. We pull up to the house. The whole team is inside praying. We bring Deborah Joy in. You can imagine the emotion. It's just such a surreal thing.
I can imagine the emotion. No one on this earth can imagine the emotion. Okay. We think we can, right?
Oh, bro, it was over the top. And we came in with Deborah Joy. Of course, she'd been crying, and everybody just gathered around her and started hugging her. And I said, hey, everybody settle down. Listen to DJ's story. DJ told him, I don't remember anything. I was up in my room praying, and that's the last memory I have. I woke up, I looked around, I knew we were in Hell Motel. They were all gathered around Anton, invoking the Dark Lord to help him to re-enter his body. I jumped up and ran out of the room, and Dad was standing in the road at the bottom of the stairs. And so I looked at everybody and I said, I know that was an intense assignment, but thank you for praying. I said, I think two things are clear. Anton's dead and Deborah's alive. And that's what needed to happen tonight. And so we were, we were worshiping God and just saying, thank you, Jesus, for your great power and for your love for Deborah Joy. And thank you for the power of prayer, the privilege of prayer, saying those kind of prayers. All of a sudden, DJ's eyes turned bright red. And Ron, just before you came on, you were doing that voice.
This one. Listen to me, earthlings. I will come in. I will consume your souls. That one.
That voice right there. So her eyes turned red, and I don't know if you've ever seen anybody that their eyes turn reptilian, but their pupils are slanted up and down, and it's freaky when you see that. Sometimes Satanists will wear contact lenses that try to make them look like that. But anyway, but these were not contact lenses. It was her eyes turned reptilian, and a voice said, I hate you. You've killed the high priest. And I said, who are you?
Who are you? We know who that is, though, right? I mean, I know where we're going with this, right?
Yeah. And yeah, you know exactly who it was. It was that spirit. And it said, I'm Leviathan, the power spirit of Anton LaVey in the Church of Satan. And you are a murderer. You've killed the high priest. And I said, well, you'll have to take that up with God. I believe he told me to do it. But I said, what right do you have to Deborah Joy Bryan? And the spirit said, this is Ray LaVey. I have a birthright to her. I said, no, you don't. I said, I am legally her father, and her legal name is Deborah Joy Bryan. And I said, furthermore, she's not into the kingdom of darkness anymore. She's into the kingdom of light, and God is her father. And honestly, Rod, at that point in my life, I'd fought the power spirit of the Linneys, the Piaza bird. I'd fought the power spirit of the Winnemucca and a bunch of other powerful spirits. But I thought that was going to be like the fight of all fights, right? Because this is Leviathan. And when I said that, I said, you have no birthright to her. You know, by cosmic law, you have no right to her. If you want a birthright, you need to go to Satan LaVey, Sr'A LaVey, or Carla LaVey, but you have no right to Deborah Joy Bryan. And when I said that, that spirit just instantly left, Ron. And honestly, I was shocked. I just thought, wow, I thought that would be a huge fight.
You know,
But it instantly left.
It's testament not only to the power of free will, okay? But I once got told that one of the biggest lies that we've been told about our soul, Pastor Dave, is that we have the ability to sell it or give it up. When that is a falsehood, you have to be demonized and have a life that has been so corrupted by a demonic force that your soul becomes almost corrupt, right? But this free will factor, right? The moment that choice is entered into your daughter's life, it's overturned so fast. I just feel like what you've just said there solidified the story of we are tricked by these demonic forces into giving over our conviction, because people don't often think about what belief means and what intent is. I talk about it in magic a lot, but we'll keep it biblical for the audience. Because it's the same thing.
All of there are cosmic laws, Ron. You know that cosmic laws. Whether it's in the kingdom of darkness or light, there are still cosmic laws. And so that's why evil spirits can't just jump on anybody. They look for cosmic right. That's why I brought up that Greek word topos. That's a license to operate. And so those licenses are granted by choices of our own will. And it's a huge issue, Ron. And now they can deceive you to make poor choices, but you've still made a choice. That's no different than the legal realm, right? Ignorance of the law is no excuse. If you signed a document, like, hey, you should have asked somebody, but you signed it, right? And so anyway, that thing, it happened just instantly. And it was gone. And we looked at each other and we said, well, that's a pretty strong confirmation that Anton's dead. We heard it from his power spirit.
That's the wildest thing to even comprehend. Okay.
Yeah, and we were still talking about it, and all of a sudden her countenance changed slightly. It wasn't the reptilian thing, but countenance changed slightly. And a woman's voice said, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. You murdered my father. And so when she said that, I thought, well, that's has to be someone in the coven. No one else knew. It had just happened. And I said, so are you Carla or are you Sr'A? And she said, I'm Sr'A. And I said, well, Sr'A, so you know that your father's dead because we cut his silver cord. We cut his silver cord because he was trespassing on the astral plane, which is exactly what you're doing right now. And so if you don't get back into your rightful body, we're going to cut your silver cord. And just like that, she said, don't do that. She said, bye, Deb. That was what she called Deborah Joy. But anyway, she said, please don't do that. Bye, Deb. And she was gone. And we looked at each other and we just thought, wow, we're writing new chapters in the weird and the wonderful here tonight. And so we just began to worship the Lord. Thank God for his goodness. Nothing else demonic happened that night. We prayed all night long, had a good time. And along about 3 or 4 in the morning, different people began to go home, and I said, let's all watch the news because we'll surely hear some rumor about how Anton died tomorrow sometime. And of course, that's when the news started coming out. And so there's still two different rumors about his death. Of course, you heard the real story, but there are other accounts of it, and the most spread around account was written by the sergeant of arms of the Church of Satan, who was Michael Aquino. You probably know about Michael Aquino, but he was former sergeant at arms of the Church of Satan. He had a falling out with Anton. He started the Temple of Set, and then he helped Anton with the remote viewing program for the Pentagon. He also was the one that was called Mickey in the legal accusations with the Presidio. The Presidio was an Air Force base installation in San Francisco where there was satanic ritual abuse. All these children, they all picked him out of a lineup, Michael Aquino, high level, above top secret level in the Pentagon. They all picked him out and said, that's Mickey. That's the guy that, had ritually abused them, sexually abused them. But anyway, that guy, he wrote a rebuttal to mine and said, Anton died with close friends and family around of cardiopulmonary. And of course, you wouldn't really expect the Church of Satan to, right? I mean, one of their 10 commandments is thou shalt lie. So anybody that expects them to tell the truth about something that would humiliate them.
I can imagine the headline now. Turns out that silver string stuff is proper real, right? Do you know what I mean? That would be the headline. You know what I mean? Because when we talk about honestly as well, I was not, you could have put a gun to my head and given me a week, right? And asked me to write the conclusion from part one of this. And at no point would I even have gotten close to this. You're just so nonchalant about it. No, let me tell you about this. Like, what is your life? Like, how do you process all of that? Like, how?
Well, I'll tell you, I've redlined my tack a lot of times. Just thought, I don't, Jesus help. I've been in a lot of dire circumstances, but you know what's happened, Ron, is Christ has delivered me from certain death multiple times. I've had demonized people with a butcher knife or a gun and threatening to kill me. And so, at some point you think, well, apparently as long as we are doing our best and serving God, apparently we're bulletproof until God's done with us. Because, I could tell you stories of Satanists that, were totally out of their mind under demonic powers. That one guy brought an extension cord, just a 6-foot extension cord, but he had it doubled. He brought it up to me and he said, I'll kill you. And he brought it up and I said, you can't do that. He put that extension cord right here and was just trembling like this. And I said, you know that you don't have authority in the spirit realm to kill me. So put down the extension cord. And then he brought it to the demonized guy's neck and said, I'll kill him then. I said, not with me here, you won't. I said, you don't have authority to kill him because right now he's under my spiritual charge. So just put the extension cord down. And of course, those experiences, Ron, you'll never be the same if you have one of those experiences. It'll change your life permanently forever.
Fully agree.
Yeah. let me tell you this. I went back to, I don't know if you are familiar with Tim Ray. He has United Intentions Media Networks out of Atlanta, Georgia. But he hobnobs with some people that you'd be interested in. But he heard about some of this stuff, and he asked me to come to his home. He has a huge home in Atlanta. And he said, I don't want to record this or anything. I just have friends that want to know about the spirit world. And would you come to Atlanta and just, he has a big basement with a nice bar in it. And it's just very nice place. He said, would you just come and hang out with us for 2 days and talk about spiritual things? And so I did. And it was just his friends. I didn't know anybody in the room except Tim. But anyway, one lady said, it bothers me that you keep talking about Jesus Christ. And I said, why does that bother you? She said, because I don't believe in him. And I said, well, the reason we're all gathered here, I think, is to hear my experiences. And the name Jesus Christ and what it represents has saved my life over and over and over. And I have, as of yet, never heard another name that has that kind of power. So I said, I want you to know something. If the name Mickey Mouse had those kind of effects, I would be using the name Mickey Mouse.
Right.
But that name doesn't have that kind of power. And so I said, because that has power over every evil spirit I've ever confronted, that's why I talk about it. And she said, okay, that makes sense. I said, thank you. It's not arbitrary. It's not a religious thing. It's just my life experience is that name has ultimate power over the spirit realm. And so I use it.
I think it's very interesting, right? Because when we talk about the special powers of Jesus, right? It's very white light and love and all the goodness, okay?
Yeah.
And you know what's really interesting was when you were talking about the Native American super spirit, right? That was in the van.
The Piaza bird.
Because technically, you made a deal with that spirit and it left and it told you what would happen if she came back. And it makes me wonder, when you have spirits that come from a culture of balance, right? Which is what a lot of native indigenous people have, a balance with existence. And modern religions have such a pressing push to just the one side of goodness, right? And the different deities and spirits that conjure from that. It's interesting because that was the one part of the story where I felt like you had a discussion with a spirit and you came to an understanding, because I imagine he didn't really want to mess around with what you were bringing. It gave me a feeling of like, it's just easier. It was easier to make that deal.
Right.
But him telling you, if you bring her back, this will happen, convinces me that you may not have been able to stop that particular kind of spirit because it doesn't go in the alignment of the deity, which is not a criticism. It's just a fascinating part for me because everything else was a casting out and it was and off they go, right? Whereas this was very much here's the situation. Okay. You just I need a pass. I need a pass on this one. Don't be a DICK. Okay, don't do it. And you came to that agreement, and that fascinated me. Also, I don't think I've properly processed your full story yet. Just to be clear, I really feel like we need to do this at least every month. Okay, I want you to bring people. I want to meet more of your people. I want to meet and hear more of these stories because we don't hear the facts about the battle on the spiritual realm from credible individuals. And when we talk about preparing people, okay, and we talk about what, you know, when we look at the military or paramedics, they have that kind of exposure therapy to what may come, and knowledge is such power. And when you have individuals like you who tell stories with such conviction, you have individuals that back it all up, and it is real. Having those memories in someone's head when they come face to face with evil could be the fundamental difference between their belief in what is needed to face what's in front of them and them, quite frankly, just hitting their pants, right? Because that's probably what would happen, right? And it just blows my mind. And the more I'm on my journey and the more I understand about deities and individuals like you, like people that are chosen by a set deity, it makes me understand the greater unity that is needed to completely suppress this evil. And that's my reaction to the Pastor Dave story. It's just there is no way I could have guessed what your story was, right? Like,
no way I could have guessed.
Why is this not a movie? Can you imagine this? Like, why is this not a movie now? Like, I want to see the Pastor Dave movie, like, now.
Okay, so here's the news.
Please,
Phil Tan Productions of Hollywood is working on a screenplay for this right now. This is the book that I wrote. The story that I told, if you want to go back through, the details are in this little book. It's called The Serpent and the Savior. And you can find that at churchofgladtidings.com at the store, or you can order it on Amazon. But remember, the prophecy was that story would go around the world. And Phil Tan is a producer in Hollywood that is planning he's working on it right now to put The Serpent and the Savior into a movie. So ought to be an exciting one.
Listen, tomorrow night, when my community and I gather, the main point of discussion tomorrow night is who's going to play Pastor Dave, because there's going to be a time lapse. Okay. And I tell you what, do you know where going to be a great point for the movie to end? Was that story where you were in that hall. You've basically just kicked the emissary to Satan's backside, liberated this woman from basically rising the Antichrist. We're just brushing over what the final stage of that was.
Exactly.
Dave. Okay, you're kind of if the ritual, you mean if Satan had risen to earth, pretty big deal. Okay, so like the point of the movie where it ends should be you sat in that place and that woman going, I don't believe in Jesus. And it cuts to you give a little cheeky smile, then and then it cuts to the credits. And that's when the title appears. Do you know what I'm saying? The pistol packing preacher. I'm telling you, I am so here for it. I am so here for it.
Good.
But
buddy.
listen, this needs to happen more often. Like I'll get my information to you from Shane and things like this, because I'm going to be processing this for a couple of days, and I feel like we need to do a Q&A or something. We just need to be able to unpack all of this. Because
send me a mailing address. I'll send you one of these books, Ron.
Almost did it again. Yes, please. I will. I would appreciate that. And we'll connect. We'll connect through Shane, because what happened to the plexiglass vampire daughter? Can we talk about that? Like, what happened there? Because that's your granddaughter. I'm just saying. Okay, plexiglass vampire chick is your granddaughter.
Oh yeah, so she's married, raised 6 kids, serving Jesus, full of the love of God.
Well, listen.
She called me grandpa.
In the movie version, right? You need to leave her as a loose end for the sequel. Okay, and then she comes back. Okay, she comes back with a vengeance, with the same baseball bat, and tries to take you all out, and you have to go through it all again. That's the sequel, Hollywood. Okay, Perspex Vampire Baby Daughter is the sequel. Okay, but no, that's amazing. So she's gone on to live a normal life. Everything's good. Yeah, dude. Like when you brought up the baseball bat and the mum, I was like, this is you told us this last time, and you were like, Vampire Perspex. Mad. And I tell you what, see, if it wasn't for the bare-chested hippie preacher in the woods, you're getting arrested. You're getting arrested that day. What are the freaking betting odds of that? What are the betting odds that your mate from God knows when just so happens to be the only possible way for you not to have been arrested? Yeah.
It's an amazing story, my friend. Only God could pull off stuff like that.
Good.
We say that it's got fingerprints of the divine all over it.
it's definitely something, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man. It is wild.
Let me mention one more thing, Ron, that some people might want to know about. That happened in 1997.
Yeah.
Again,
I'm not rushing you, by the way. Please take your time. Please take your time.
Yeah. I've had lots and lots of experiences since then all over the world. But because of that, we do 2 weeks a year, one in March or April. And then the other one we always do the week of Halloween. And so the last week of October will be the next time we do a week-long teaching. We call it Isaiah 61 Conference on spiritual warfare and deliverance. And it starts on a Monday night. It goes from 9 to 9, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then it ends about 4 o'clock on Friday. But if anybody's listening, it's free. We had 38,000 people listen online last time we did it.
Damn.
And we had about between 400 and 500 that were here. But you can listen online, or if you can, come out and join us. But we just talk about spiritual reality. We talk about how you can get free, stay free, and help other people get free. And that's the Isaiah 61 Conference on spiritual warfare and deliverance. So I thought some people may want to know more about that.
Here's the thing. You just saying that, you got to remember, right? And just keep it in context. We've got Pastor Dave, and then we've got, a self-proclaimed pagan witch on the panel. Like that's my lifestyle. And for me, I mean, literally, I've got pumpkins over in the corner there 24/7. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that is just blasphemy. Not blasphemy, but I mean, there's a couple of like sheep skulls hanging on the walls and all this kind of stuff. And for me, Halloween is a very different time. But I think for me, you got to remember, I'm at a level where I'm completely closed off and protected from so many of the nasty things that people leave themselves susceptible to. And I think I will listen to your show because I've never heard the other side of the story. And I think in order to fully understand, just because I walk in the path of a different God, okay, I'm maybe not as susceptible to a lot of the things that other religions are. And like I say, I believe I'm here to play my part in the defeat of an evil. And it started out with child trafficking and all that horrible stuff. And, I have done very bizarre things, Pastor Dave, with the side chat, where I've picked someone, and you can see, you've got B27, right? For example, you couldn't tell if B was a male or a female, where she was from, where they're from, how old they are, just from a screen name. And I've done readings on people and told them things about themselves that there's no way I should know. And when it comes to gifts, I don't even think it's a gift. I think we've spent thousands of years being told these things are witchcraft and they need to be ignored. And I think if we can dial back into what to me is as simple as blinking, and it's having the belief in our abilities to do these things, that intention and that will, incredible things can happen. And it shouldn't be dictated by the laws of mass religion. And people like yourself and my friend John Wedger and a few other people who are part of the same faith as you, it's incredible when you allow all of the gods to exist and what can be learned. It is so much more powerful than putting all your eggs in one basket, shall we say. And don't get me wrong, you can put 99 eggs in one basket and just have a couple of other eggs sprouting about, because what you believe in, what you follow, is very different than what you can bring in when it's necessary, and I think that is what's opened my eyes to so much. And I just love it. I just love this journey. I love it all. And
I'm very pleased to meet you, Ron, and I appreciate all that you've done to help people understand truth, to expose evil. To me, the world, it's a big world. We as humans are made in the image and likeness of God. And so we're meant to reflect him, his nature, his wisdom, his goodness. and all of the aspects of his being. There are just as there are good humans and there are evil humans, but there are good spirits and there are evil spirits, and
Of course.
they're very busy, they're very active, and so if you need to uh, to learn anything about that or think that it could be helpful, we've tried to get some materials together. But what I want to say is that God is a good God and his ways are good. I thank God for the power of Jesus Christ in my life. I'd be a dead man multiple times over without it. And but not only the power, but I'm thankful for the goodness. I live a good life. I'm thankful for the virtues of love and honesty and faith, and it's a beautiful thing.
The existence of love is
Yeah.
what separates us from true evil. Love
Yep.
has no
Love.
place in the world of evil. It doesn't exist. The understanding, it's like trying to explain to a clock what a block of cheese is. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I've got a friend called Danny Henderson, and she is very much all about, it's all about love, darling. It's all about love. And I never really got it, right? I never really got it until I got it, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds, do you know how clever and simple the things we are that we need in life, that we've been convinced that are so difficult? And trust me when I say there is nothing that comes close to the power of true love and existence. And
I believe that, my friend. I believe that. Actually, I conclude the teaching on weapons of our warfare. I go through a dozen of them, but I end with love, because there is nothing more powerful than love, and love completely overwhelms spirits of evil. They just can't deal with love. It's just like nothing. Right. Please, not that, not that, not that.
It's existence.
Yeah.
It's their anti-Christ. It's their anti-demon, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's see, when you get, because I know of you, some of you are going to be watching this back and you're going to be like, oh God, not that all we need is love nonsense again. See, when you get it, come back to this video and comment what it was that made you realize. Because when you get it, you get it. And even a man alone in a cave can find reasons to love. Okay. Yeah. Even if you are standing on a mountaintop and all you've got is the rising and setting sun, there is love in that. And it's your ability to love, okay, that you need to get your head around. You can be the loneliest person in the world who is full of love. Yeah. And when you get to grips with that, you'll be like, oh God, they've totally fooled us in this world. And one of the things they fooled us of is there's not enough good to go around. And trust me, there is. You just got to believe it. And you know, it's a good ending to this, I have to say. But Pastor Dave, when I end this, I don't want you to leave, because there's a couple of things I'd like to show you for 5 minutes before you leave. You know for a fact that Pastor Dave will be coming back, because Ron's going to process all this, and there's a lot. But I want this to be a journey through what we can learn from Pastor Dave to better ready ourselves for encounters that can really come out of nowhere. So thank you all for watching.
All of life should be a journey. All of life 100%. Should be a journey. Yeah.
100%. Find Pastor Dave's links down in the description. Please like and subscribe. Pastor Dave, please stay there. Everyone else, I will see you all tomorrow. We are live with criminal profiler Phil Chalmers going over the real Ed Gein just before Netflix series pops off, because that looks wild. And we'll see you all there. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next.